different trainings and networking opportunities. And we're just delighted to see you all here today. And we're so happy that you have decided to participate in this amazing opportunity that we have been given in this state. So you can see from this slide that there are a lot of different folks involved, a lot of different organizations in this collaboration. And so AmeriCorps California is actually administered by California Volunteers, which is part of the Office of the Governor in California, and in partnership with California Library Literacy Services, which is a program of the California State Library. The grant is actually to Pacific Library Partnership, and so they are the fiscal agent and also the grantee. And then Literacy Works, which I'm on the Literacy Works part of the team, and Lisa and Paul are as well. We are the ones who are really going to be working most closely with you, be administering the program and offering you support. And so this will become a little more clear in some upcoming slides when we introduce ourselves. So my name is Kathy St. John. I haven't had as much to do with you as your onboarding, but you will certainly get to know me over the next year. I am the project administrator for the AmeriCorps program, and I'll mostly be working on training and program issues for the project. And Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Lisa Thompson, the project coordinator. You guys have been harassed by email by me for quite some time now, as soon as you got onboarded. And I am the one who's collecting all the data and all the background information and keeping that all in your AmeriCorps file, which we have on America Learns. And that's the America Learns database is where we're going to be doing our timesheets, have our member profile. That's where we'll have communication between supervisors, staff, and members. And then I'll also be helping with the tracking and the reporting.
Great, thank you, Lisa. And Paul.
Yes, hello, everybody. I'm the Executive Director of Literacy Works, and I'm going to be doing the living allowance for everybody, and helping Lisa with the background checks and doing the reimbursement checks and doing all that side of this wonderful program. And actually, Literacy Works worked on AmeriCorps back with the libraries back from 2004 to 2010. So it's deja vu all over again. Here we are. Happy to be here.
Long history. All right, Bev, do you want to introduce yourself and your team, who I don't think they're present, but
no, they're not present, but everyone will get to meet them. Thanks, Kathy. So I'm Bev Schwartzberg. I work for the California State Library, and we're going to talk a little later about what that is. But I am what's called a library programs consultant, and at the State Library, I'm the point person for California Library Literacy Services, which we're going to talk about too. My able colleagues are Allison Gifredo, who you will meet in the future, who handles California Library Literacy Services, sort of the technical questions, and my colleagues Sherilyn Hunt and Andrea Leva, and you'll be meeting them because they help run training. Some of you may have actually been in this morning that they helped run. They work for a separate grant that helps support AmeriCorps as well, called Literacy Initiatives. And Sherilyn and Andrea are fundamental parts of the staff that will help AmeriCorps happen. I was also involved in AmeriCorps 2004 to 2010. I was a site supervisor. I was a library literacy coordinator, just like a lot of the folks that members are working with now. And I had many AmeriCorps members over that 6-year period. And I'm super excited to bring this initiative back. We've been looking for an opportunity to bring AmeriCorps members back to library literacy programs. And we're so excited that 2022 is the year that it happened. So thanks.
Yay. All right, so we would love to get to know you all. And so we don't, I'm trying to see how many people we have here. This is exciting, but
We have 14 members and
14
then site
members.
supervisors.
Terrific, terrific. So we just wanted to do something just very, very light and fluffy and quick. And so if you could please introduce yourself by sharing your name, your library or program name, and your favorite junk food.
Kathy,
so-
maybe we should get people on screen and you could
Yes, let me
minimize the slides for the
stop
moment.
sharing.
There they are.
And yeah, let's think, how are we gonna do this? We could call on people, I guess. So
How about you call on someone and that person calls on the next person?
oh, I love that. Great idea. Okay. So how about Rebecca McManus?
Hi, my name is Rebecca, but I go by Becky, and I'm working with Yolo County Library in the Yolo Reads program. And favorite junk food would probably be, I don't know, hot Cheetos.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Who would you like to hear from, Rebecca?
Let's do Laurel Dennis.
Hello. Sorry, my light just went out in my office. I'm working for the Placentia Library, and I'd say my favorite junk food is ice cream sandwiches.
That's great. All right.
I
Just-
will call on Melanie Chong.
Okay, hi, I'm Melanie. I'm working with AK Smiley Library in Redlands, and my favorite junk food is probably hot Cheetos as well. I'm maybe snacking right now.
Yeah.
And I'll go ahead and hear from Kiani. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, my name is Kiani. I'm with the San Benito County Free Library, and my favorite junk food would probably be Kinder Bueno bars.
Oh.
I think I'll go with Erica.
Sorry about that. My name is Erica and I work for the San Benito Free Library as well. And my favorite junk food, I don't know if pizza would be considered junk food.
Sure.
I'll call on Dora.
Hi, for the Solano Library in Fairfield. My junk food is fries.
Who would you like to hear from, Dora?
Anna Vaina?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm placed at the National City Public Library. And for junk food, I would say I'm obsessed with Gushers, the candy Gushers. So delicious. Highly recommend. And I guess all popcorn to Esther.
Hi, everyone. I am with Placentia Library District, and my favorite junk food is ice cream, specifically Rocky Road, my favorite. All right, so I will pick, how about Stephanie Jones?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Jones, and I work for the San Benito County Free Library. And I would say that my favorite junk food is peanut M&Ms. And I will call on Shay.
Hi, my name is Shay. I'm with the Shasta Public Libraries. My favorite junk food is tortilla chips and nacho cheese. And Then I'm going to go with Juan Perez.
Hello, I'm Juan A. Perez, and I'm with the San Benito County Free Library as well. And so, my favorite chocolate. I just love chocolate. Stephanie. Yeah, I love chocolate. Sharing an office is rough.
And Juan, who would you like to hear from?
Renee Kennedy, did she go?
I don't think so.
No, I haven't gone yet. My name's Renee Kennedy, and I am with the AK Smiley Public Library. And my favorite junk food is dark chocolate Reese's peanut butter cups. Yeah, they're very good. And I'd like to call on Sitlali.
Hi, I'm Citlali. I'm with the Merced County Library. And my favorite junk food, I would say, are jalapeno chips. And I will call on Diane.
Hi, my name is Diane Shimoda. I am with AK Smiley Public Library in Redlands, and my favorite junk food is dark chocolate covered almonds. And I'll call on Ann Sandin.
Hello, my name's Ann, and I'll be working at the Smiley Library in Redlands as well. And I think my favorite junk food is popcorn, because I can toss it and share it with my dog and not feel too guilty, if that makes sense. And I'm looking at a very small screen, so let's see. How about Obadallah?
Hello, everyone. My name is Obaidullah Najimi, last name Najimi. And I am with the Stanislaus County Library. My favorite junk food is chips, potato chips. But I don't know whom I should call because I missed the number and also the name of.
Oh, how about Daniel?
My name's Daniel. I work with Shasta Public Library, and my favorite junk food is pizza.
And can you see anybody who hasn't been called yet, Daniel?
One moment. There's so many.
How about you? If you haven't been called yet, wave.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Why don't we, Daniel, can you see them or should we just call on somebody for you?
Away.
Okay, why don't we call in Kelsey, if that's okay?
Great.
Hello, I'm Kelsey. I'm working with Solano County Libraries at the Fairfield Civic Center. And my favorite junk food is pita chips with cheesy artichoke dip. Oh, and I will pick, let's see, Tim.
Oh, Tim, we can't hear you. You can put it in the chat if you want. And while Tim's typing away, Amy Bowes, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi. Oh, I see Tim's got his notes in there now.
Donuts.
Donuts are good. I'm Amy Bays. I'm from Merced County Library, and I'm going to go with kettle potato chips, kettle cooked chips. Those are my snack of choice. Who else hasn't gone yet?
Is there anyone who's just on the phone?
I think Diana and maybe Sally.
Yeah,
You caught me.
You caught.
You
There
caught
you
me.
are.
This is Diana. My favorite junk food, let's see. My latest beverage that I'm hooked on is actually from Starbucks, but it's an iced blonde latte. So it's got the blonde espresso, blonde latte with oat milk and no ice. And also I found a recipe for tahini balls. So it's a raw food recipe where you mix cacao powder, tahini, coconut, and some, you can put like, roll it in sesame seeds, and it's so good. But it really gives you quick energy, and that's nice to have.
Diana, what
Central,
library?
Sacramento Central Library, Sac Central. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. How
I don't
about,
think we've heard from Stephanie.
let's see, do we have two Stephanies? We heard from Stephanie Jones.
Here she is. There's Stephanie.
Yes. Hi.
Oh, there we go.
My name is Stephanie Cortez. I work for Yolo County Library and I love ice cream.
Great. Is Sally?
Hi, I'm Sally. I'm with Placentia Library, and I agree with Stephanie. I love ice cream.
Great. Gosh, who hasn't gone? Did we
Well,
get
our
it?
two special guests haven't gone, but we'll have to ask them when we interview them.
All right, that sounds great. Excellent. Okay, thank you, everybody. This is so interesting. And yes, I too am very hungry now. So I will, at 5:01, I'll be grabbing a snack. All right, here we go. And so here is our agenda. We have a bunch to do today and even more to do on Wednesday. And as you may have guessed, there's just a lot of complex information that goes into the AmeriCorps program. And so as a requirement of the grant and of being part of the program, we are obligated to cover all of this material. And so it's going to be a little bit dense, but it's also very informative and hopefully inspirational. So you're going to learn from Paul about AmeriCorps and about California volunteers so that you get a better sense of what you're a part of. It's you are a part of a movement in California and across the country, and it's important for you to understand that movement. And so then Bev will talk about the California Library Literacy Services. So you're also part of a very important statewide system of library literacy. And so if you are especially new to literacy and to CLLS, which is what we call it, then this will be a great opportunity for you to learn more about that. And then I'll be covering key information that you need to know to be an AmeriCorps member. And then we'll have time for some questions and answers. So does anybody have any questions at this point? We're going to have opportunities throughout the afternoon to ask questions, but does anybody have any burning questions right now before we introduce you to some very special guests? No? Okay. All right. Well, you're in for a treat. Bev is going to introduce you to some our very, very, very special guests today. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I just want to introduce our guests, Gail Sorensen and Crystal Duran. And if Gail and Crystal can turn on their cameras, but maybe everybody else can turn their cameras off so we can highlight them. And I'm going to ask them some questions. I'm turning my camera off too, so we just see Gail and Crystal. So this is great. There will always be a few people who have cameras on, and that's okay. And if you're on a phone, I know it's hard to turn it off. So Gail and Crystal are our special guests today. Gail is from the Riverside County Library and Library System, and Crystal's from the Belvedere Tiburon Library. And I'm just going to plunge right in and ask us not only to tell you your favorite snack food, but Gail, Crystal, if you could tell us just a little bit about yourselves. Tell us your name and your current job and when and where you served in AmeriCorps. Gail, why don't you go first?
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Gail Sorensen. I saw some familiar faces and names, so hello everyone. Nice to see you. I served in AmeriCorps. My member year was 2005. I was at the Lodi Public Library, standalone library, city library at the time. Bev actually was one that trained me back in 2005, which I love. And I am now working for Riverside County Library System. I am a branch manager. There's 35 of us. We have 35 branches in our system. I'm one of the branch managers, and it all started back with AmeriCorps. So glad to be here. Thank you for asking.
And Crystal, go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Crystal Duran. I'm currently the library director at the Belvedere Tiburon Library, which is a small library in the Bay Area. And my favorite junk food is dark chocolate, which I heard a few folks mention. I served at AmeriCorps also in 2005, same year as Gail, although I don't remember meeting Gail during that year, maybe at a training. And I actually served while I was living in Southern California. So I was in a rural area called Imperial County, and it's right where California borders Mexico and Arizona. And it's a small system down there as well.
So Crystal, let's keep going with you. What interested you in AmeriCorps? What made you want to sign up?
So I think that was one of those serendipitous opportunities that came up when you just happened to be in the library, but I was actually working in the library in high school as through a student work program. And I got to know one or two of the directors while I was working there. When they were starting their AmeriCorps program, they started looking around to recruit, and they asked if I'd be interested in it. I had always been a pretty active student in school. I was probably going to go into speech language pathology is what I was thinking of at the time when I was in high school. So I was kind of dedicated and in that arena already. So they asked if I'd be interested, and they talked to me about it. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to also stay in the library as well. And so that's why I joined up, and I'm so glad I did.
Gail, how about you? What made you join up?
Well, I was part-time working circ at the Lodi Public Library, and I was also a tutor. I had begun tutoring and during my first year there. And Stephanie Allen, some of you may remember her from Sacramento, and after she left Lodi, she said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity of AmeriCorps. Would you like to come on board and help out?" And I said, I don't even know what AmeriCorps is, right? And we got into it. It's kind of the domestic Peace Corps. You might hear that often. And she said, "I really want to build up the department, and I want to be able to train. And how about if you join in?" So Harold and I, both of us on the older side, decided to join up and become AmeriCorps folks. So we kind of expanded out. We were both tutors at the time, expanded out. And it was just really a lot of fun. And I joined up because I really wanted to learn more. And that was really the carrot that was dangling, if you will, that I was going to learn more about literacy, and went with it.
So Gail, what did you get out of that year? What sort of things were you able to do in your AmeriCorps year?
It was a great experience for me because I was able to learn so much during that particular year. Carla Lane, many of you may know Carla. She's working with the volunteers now, but she was with literacy at the time. And she and Bev in particular, I remember, were really great supporters of us learning what we wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to do large events. How do you plan and implement a large event? And I was able to learn how to do that. I also, I was able to help Stephanie with the numbers, those dreaded budgets and applications that you have to do for CLLS. And I was able to jump in as an old banker. I was able to help her with that. So it was really a conglomeration, I would say, a collaboration of all of our experiences working together and expanding on that and learning new things and making a difference for the community. That was the bottom line, being able to do that. It was a lot of fun.
So Crystal, how about you? What did you get out of your AmeriCorps year? And tell us the sort of things that you did and what you learned and how did you and your program grow?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It was the first year that the libraries were utilizing AmeriCorps programs. So it was a lot of opportunities to kind of start from the ground up, and also got to do a lot of the, all right, so, you know, what's the process we're going to use to recruit tutors and volunteers, and what kind of training should we be doing for them? And how are we going to keep them on board and retain them? How are we going to engage, you know, folks who are interested in literacy services? So it was a lot of really beginning from the ground up, and it was really fun because I really like to do all that kind of stuff. I think I learned that through that year. I also in that year got to work with the family literacy services. So I was able to go to different preschools, can do some story times and pre-literacy activities. And that's when I realized I actually really liked working with little kids. I think up until that point, if you would have told me, you know, you're going to have lead a circle time or story time, I would have, you know, laughed at you, but I ended up loving that. And so it was really eye-opening experience on the children's side. And then likewise, just learning, I think, just about adults and the need to, or the opportunity that was available to be able to work with adults, and that something that I had never even considered or never thought of or experienced, you know, adults having challenges with literacy and navigating society because of those challenges. So got to do a lot of hands-on work, and because we were really starting the program from the ground up. And like Gail said, I got an opportunity to plan a big event. It was really fun. We did a family literacy fair, so that was a really good time. Just good times.
And how did all that work influence your rest of your career? How did it?
So AmeriCorps was life-changing for me. Because of all the fun that I had in the library that year, and the fact that I felt like I was making a difference, it just really solidified for me that I wanted to stick with library work. After my AmeriCorps year, I was lucky enough, I got a part-time job in the library that I was at. So I was able to continue and really quickly promoted up while I was going to school, working on my bachelor's. I was at a community college, so it was perfect timing. And transferred, finally had to leave my small library, transferred, but I knew that I would want to come, I knew I wanted to come back to the library. So went to UCLA, went straight into my Master's of Library and Information Science program, stayed in LA for a few years using my library degree in a research environment, which was really interesting, good opportunity there too. And when the opportunity presented itself, I came back to the Imperial County and took over one of the libraries down there. And now I'm up in the Bay Area in another library, smaller library system as well. So AmeriCorps was definitely life-changing opportunity for me. I'm so glad I did it. And then I got to, you know, make friends and meet people in AmeriCorps as well in that same service year, and work with folks at a regional level too. So it was all good stuff.
Thanks for that great story. That's wonderful. Gail, how about you? What happened here to your life as a result of AmeriCorps?
Well, you know, as you know, many of you, I've been in literacy predominantly over the last 18 years now, that I started with CLLS and working with AmeriCorps in literacy. But in addition to that, I've worked in libraries, and truly and honestly, the Education Award with AmeriCorps is what sent me back to school initially. I finished my bachelor's degree in library science and media first, and that path was truly started with my Education Award from AmeriCorps, and went on to do my MLIS after that. It's never too late. You can go ahead and always get whatever degrees you want. It's never too late. And AmeriCorps really opened that door for me, or at least I would say planted the seed in my head that I could go back to school and finish up what I had done before. I think too, for me, I remember going to the year-end meeting that Carla Lane had held with us. I looked around the room and I realized, I think there was like 76 of us that year, 2005, something like that. And I remember looking around the room thinking, man, we're just a small army that went out in California this year and touched thousands of people's lives, made a difference for thousands of people just from this small little army of AmeriCorps folks. And that's really what you are today. You're starting your journey with AmeriCorps, and you will be amazed at how many people you're going to be able to help just from doing this. And you'll be able to help yourself too with your education award, whatever you're planning to do. It's made a huge difference in my life. This old banker that decided that it was something more fun to do working in the libraries and helping folks, joining the service industry. That's really where all of this started from. So you should be happy and excited, because I'll tell you what, you're going to have a good time. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you, Crystal. These are folks who came to the library to serve and never left. We're so happy that we were able to hear their stories, and I'm sure they'll hang around for a couple minutes if you want to put some questions into chat. But thank you so much for coming and sharing those stories. And for those of you who heard some names, that Carla Lane, who was instrumental in creating the first AmeriCorps initiative for California Library Literacy Services, will be coming back and doing some training for all of you in December on Volunteer 101. So I know Gail and Crystal are both big fans of hers. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm inspired. I'm sure that all of our new AmeriCorps members are too. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Gail and Crystal? You can either raise your hand or put them in the chat box.
And I'm going to offer, they're always available to you. So thank you guys. And Kathy, we're ready to turn it back to the slides. I'm just so grateful you guys could come today.
Thank you so much. And I think I'm handing it over to Lisa at this point. Lisa and Paul.
Yeah, next up is Paul. He's going to be talking about the AmeriCorps program. So Kathy, I don't know if you want to share your screen through this, or Paul is going to.
I thought, Paul, do you want to just go ahead and share your screen?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and share my screen here. Come on. There we go. Yikes. I don't want to see that. So Gail and Crystal, that's great. I almost feel like you've shared everything with us, and I don't even have to do this presentation now, because you gave a great review of what being an AmeriCorps volunteer is all about. So this is a slideshow that the California volunteers and AmeriCorps have put together. So I want to go through it a little bit. Let's see. Oops. Here we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about history of national and state service, overview of AmeriCorps, and welcome to you California volunteers. So I'm not going to go through the complete history, but the roots of AmeriCorps started with the Civilian Conservation Corps under Franklin Roosevelt, and officially became the Peace Corps under Robert Kennedy, or John Kennedy, sorry, president. And then President Lyndon B. Johnson created VISTA, which stands for Volunteers in Service to America. In '76, Governor Jerry Brown in California established the California Conservation Corps. Bill Clinton in '93 officially created AmeriCorps and the Corporation for National and Community Service. And then we ended up in Governor Gavin Newsom created the California Climate Action Corps and also the California Volunteers. And that was in 21 and 22. So this kind of repeats what I just said, so we'll skip that there. This is important that President Obama signed the Service in America Act, a Serve in America Act in 2009. And this really expanded service opportunities and set AmeriCorps on a path to 250,000 positions by 2017. But a big part of that legislation was the Siegel Education Award, in which when you've finished with your service, if you're full-time, you can, that goes toward your education scholarship. AmeriCorps network of local, state, and national service programs, as I said, engages more than 75,000 AmeriCorps members at 21,000 service locations. So AmeriCorps have different groupings. They do different things. AmeriCorps State and National is what you're involved in right now. And so that's, and through the state level, it's the California Volunteers. And then there's AmeriCorps Vista, which is a little different program. And then AmeriCorps, the NCCC, which is more that's the Conservation Corps. And they do projects like for FEMA to rebuild things, for example. And they build homes. And anyway, this is repeating pretty much what I just said. So AmeriCorps Vista is Service to America. And it's, as I said, about 8,000 members serve each year. And they focus on building capacity building, raising funds, recruiting volunteers, designing sustainable programs. The National Civilian Community Corps is full-time, and that's actually a residential program where everyone lives together for a year. And that's open to 18 to 24-year-olds. And they focus on disaster response, environmental housing, and youth. Okay, so what is AmeriCorps? So let me play this quick.
Questions about AmeriCorps? Well, you've come to the right place because we're here to help. First off, let's clear up one thing right away. You might be wondering how to say or spell AmeriCorps. Sometimes people pronounce the P, but don't make that same mistake. AmeriCorps is alive and well, just spelled with a silent P. So think of Apple Core or core of the earth. Now that we have that clear, what exactly is AmeriCorps anyways? AmeriCorps is simply Americans of all ages and backgrounds dedicating their time and skills to get things done. There we go. So how does AmeriCorps get things done? More than 80,000 Americans across the country join AmeriCorps each year, and all of them are tackling different problems in different ways. For example, AmeriCorps members help families attain affordable homes. They mentor students so that they stay in school. Perhaps there is a tornado, a flood, a forest fire, or a hurricane. AmeriCorps members also help communities recover from disasters. There's so many more things that AmeriCorps members do, but if we said it all, we'd be here all day. Why do we call them members, you ask? AmeriCorps members spend anywhere from 3 months to a year dedicating their time and skills to serve. They can volunteer with nonprofits, schools, public agencies, and community and faith-based organizations. And in case you were wondering, there are a few perks AmeriCorps members get, including money to pay for college, student loan deferment, training, living allowance, health benefits, and job opportunities with leading employers. Not too bad, right? All right. What's the purpose of AmeriCorps? Like the military or the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps is a way to serve your country. AmeriCorps members make Americans safer, stronger, and healthier, and they strengthen our communities. But above all, AmeriCorps members get things done. That's it. That's what AmeriCorps is. Learn more about AmeriCorps at AmeriCorps.gov.
This is your moment to take the path less traveled, to break the status quo, to stop talking about the problem and be the solution. This is your moment to create your own future, to bring people together and seek common ground. This is your moment to make our country safer, smarter, and healthier. You can inspire a kid to a brighter future. Build a house for a family in need or rebuild a community after disaster. Work in the wilderness to protect our public lands. Help a veteran find a home, a job, or a mentor. This is your moment to shape the future. This is your moment to be the greater good. Join America.
Okay, so everybody, welcome to California Volunteers, because this is the state organization that is the AmeriCorps. The grants come in and they supervise all the AmeriCorps programs in California. And so it's the state office with engaging Californians in service and volunteerism to tackle our state's most pressing challenges, says Gavin Newsom. And the mission is to cultivate the opportunities, infrastructure, and cultural necessary to empower every California to positively impact our greatest challenges. So this is all the AmeriCorps programs in California. And you can see that, let's see, the one program, they have AmeriCorps Senior program that's not on here, but it's a lot of different programs that do a lot of different things. So Gavin Newsom says, welcome to AmeriCorps. And in California, this is interesting statistics. So there's about 2,800 local service sites, like the libraries are, the library sites that you're working at, or you're providing service at, excuse me. 17,400 AmeriCorps members in the state of California. 198.6 million, excuse me, AmeriCorps dollars have come into California, and 483.8 million AmeriCorps scholarships have been earned since 1994. It's pretty impressive numbers. And just to give you an overview of the network, so we have the federal funding for AmeriCorps, comes from the federal government. And then there's the state commissions, that's California Volunteers. The program partners and service sites, the library sites that you're going to be providing service at. And then there's you, the members. And then, of course, most importantly is the communities you're serving in. So to break it down a little bit real quick, the California Volunteers administers the federal funds, support program partners, creates a network of statewide and service members. Program partners, the library sites, implement programs, recruit, train, manage, and support members, and report to California Volunteers and Literacy Works here. And the member, you, enhance communities and build networks, provide direct service, learn and develop new skills. So thank you. And that is a quick overview. This is all going to be, you're going to get a copy of the slideshow, and you're going to get a member manual that explains a lot of this in more detail. So thank you very much. To Lisa, I believe.
Correct. Hi, guys. It's Lisa Thompson again from Literacy Works. You guys have been communicating with me via email, and I'm going to do my portion of the slideshow right now. So let me share my screen. All right. We are going to review some AmeriCorps basics right now. So there is a certain language that we use with AmeriCorps. we are members and not employees. So we don't use words like I was hired by AmeriCorps or this is my job. Or I earn money at AmeriCorps. It is a service position. So we like to talk about it. You know, it's the Domestic Peace Corps. Members are not employees. They're engaged in service. So you would say, I serve at YOLO, not I work at YOLO. So when we want to make sure people understand the sort of language we want to use around the program, because we're required to use it and we'd love you guys to get used to using it too. It takes a little while to get used to it. Also, you aren't receiving a paycheck, you're getting a living allowance and an education award. Another basic part of the program is that it's a full year commitment, and there are 3 different ways you all are serving. You have full-time members, half-time members, and quarter-time members. And right now you're serving a term that started November 1st and it goes to October 31st of 2023. And you're going to be getting the amount of hours you signed up for done in that period of time. So here is the member experience framework. There's a lot of information on this page. Whoops. And I'm just going to talk about some of the things. This pie sort of represents your experience in the AmeriCorps program. And we want to emphasize that as much as the members are giving to the program and the community, they are going to be getting a lot out of the program and from their experience in the community that they can take with them into their lives after the program ends. So one big part of it is this learning and professional development. Now that's going to be happening. You're going to be receiving training and leadership development. You're going to start getting monthly trainings starting in December, and we're going to be announcing the topics each month. Like today, there was a training for ESL tutor training, and they also have a training called Volunteer 101 and different things that you'll be learning that you'll be using in the program. And there'll be other ways that you're getting your training too. You're also going to be learning about life during and after service. So ways that you can deal with some of the issues that come up while you're serving, and then how to address things that are going to come up when your service ends and what opportunities are going to be available for you at that time. Another way that you'll be getting some professional development is you're going to be learning how to teach other people to tutor adults in learning and in reading. So that will be a great skill you can take with you afterwards. And one of the things that they like to say is that you'll be enhancing your community, you'll be building networks, you're going to provide direct service to members of the community, and you are going to learn and develop new skills. And some of our guests today earlier, Crystal and Gail, they showed you some of the ways that they were able to take their experience with AmeriCorps, to give you wonderful examples of that and take it into their life afterwards. The structure and support systems, these are in place for you to support you while you're serving in the next year. You're going to have leadership and management. That's going to start with your site supervisors. They've recruited you. They're going to help train you. They're going to manage you and support you, help you do timesheets and progress reports every month. And your Literacy Works team will be helping you also with the America Learns platform and all the things that you need to be doing there. You'll also have CLLS on your side and other ways to make sure that you're fully supported in your program and that you have someone to go to when you have questions. And last but not least, you're going to be getting a huge sense of fulfillment from this program, we are hoping. The impact of your service was mentioned by Gail and Crystal, like the ways that they served and how they felt about what they were doing in the community, and they could really see their impact that they had. And the connectedness will be happening through working with the community also and feeling connected to them. Some of the benefits of the program right here, we have our living allowance. That's going to be a modest biweekly living allowance that will cover all your basic expenses. And depending on whether you're full-time, half-time, or quarter-time, that will determine how much that you will be getting. Your end of service award. So this is the education award that you're going to receive if you complete your entire program for the year and the number of hours that you need to complete. You can't, unfortunately, get your education award if you stop your program early and don't complete your hours. So it's called the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award. Full-time members will receive up to $6,095, plus they'll also be getting an additional $3,505 state education award for a total of $10,000 to use towards their education. Half-time members will be getting a $3,247 education award. Quarter-time members get $1,718. Professional development, we talked about that. You're going to be learning new skills and you're going to be able to bolster up your resume right there. You're also going to be able to develop skills to use for a new career that you might be looking for afterwards. And the skills, you're going to gain these transferable skills that you'll be able to show to employers, including things like leadership, teamwork, and problem-solving skills. And then that is going to help you with jobs with leading employers. So you're going to be able to afterwards connect to a network of over 500 employers from all sectors who value the AmeriCorps experience. There's a network called Employers of National Service, and you get connected with them, and they are a network of hundreds of employers from the private, public, and nonprofit sectors, and they are committed to hiring AmeriCorps alumni. So that's one nice connection that you'll have after the program. In terms of a health benefit, that's available to full-time members. You can sign up for health care through that. There's also childcare offered for those who are full-time members. And then there are many more benefits that you can look up at AmeriCorps.gov/join. And does anybody have any questions at this time? Nope, no questions. Okay, then our next slide is on California Library Literacy Services. And so I'm going to stop my share and turn it over to Bev.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you. Kathy, would you be able to share slides while I'm talking? Because I'm going to be jumping around.
Certainly am.
Thank you so much. So take a deep breath. I'm going to give you a break at some point so everybody can get their wiggles out for sure. But I'm here to tell you a story about California Library Literacy Services, which provide no-cost adult literacy services in libraries throughout the state. Not all libraries are a part of CLLS, but the majority of California libraries are. So in the next slide, I just want to give you a little bit of the context of the history of CLLS, as we call it. So California Library Literacy Services is often abbreviated CLLS. It started almost 40 years ago as something called the California Literacy Campaign. And the California Literacy Campaign popped up at a time when a lot of people in the US were looking at the issue of adult low literacy. It was the early 80s. It was a time actually throughout the 1980s where a lot of community-based organizations and the media started paying attention to the issues related to low adult literacy in the US. And it wasn't a new issue. People have been talking about helping adults learn how to read and write for many years. And there were many reasons why adults struggled with reading and still struggle with reading. Sometimes it's because they didn't have a chance to go to school. And sometimes it's a chance they didn't have consistently. Sometimes there were folks with learning disabilities that hadn't been diagnosed, or where the schools they went to didn't really know how to help those folks learn. Sometimes they were folks who grew up in segregated communities where they didn't have equal access, or their families were in economic circumstances where they weren't enrolled in schools consistently. There are a lot of reasons for adult low literacy. But in 1975, there was this national study released by the University of Texas, and it revealed that really about 20% of American adults were at a very, very low, were not really functionally literate. They did not read and write at a basic level that could help them in their lives. And that most of those were actually English-speaking adults who had been raised in the United States. Over the years, study after study confirms about the same number. It's actually probably a little higher now, but we look at adult low literacy learners, and clearly there's so much need in our communities. We have great adult schools, we have great community colleges, we have great schools, but still there's a need for folks who slipped through the cracks or didn't get what they needed for one reason or another. So in 1984, something called the California Literacy Campaign was born. I was administered by the California State Library, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And the state legislature provides every year funding for California libraries, and currently 104 library jurisdictions participate. And that funding goes to support volunteer-supported adult literacy services in California. So our website is libraryliteracy.org, and you're going to be referring to that a lot over the year. But I just wanted you to see it right now, and there's so many resources. And one of the resources on there are films and videos that help tell the story of CLLS. So the next slide, Kathy, we're going to get there. I said I promised to tell you what the state library was, because this was always mystifying to me. I ran a library literacy program. Kathy St. John ran a library literacy program. My colleagues Allison ran a library literacy program. Our friends Crystal and Gail ran library literacy programs, and all of those were funded by an institution called the California State Library. Well, the California State Library it's kind of a thing, and it's an idea. The thing is, it's actually a set of buildings in Sacramento that have really important collections for the state. There are historical collections, there's a library, there's a law library. So it really is a library that has research materials and materials for checkout available. But the California State Library is also what I like to call an idea. It's a service to the people of California. So part of the California State Library is actually something called the California Research Bureau, which helps the legislature by doing reports and research on all sorts of current issues. But it's also part of, there's a part of it that's called Library Development Services that helps libraries across California, particularly public libraries. And they put the wind beneath the wings of public libraries. So for me, the California State Library is an institution that supports public libraries throughout the state of California. We support it with annual funding, but also with grant-related funding. And so when I talk about the California State Library, I'm talking about that institution that loves and supports your public library in your community. Yes, it's a place in Sacramento, but it's also an idea, and it's an idea that supports public libraries. So next slide, Kathy, thanks. California Library Literacy Services, here are some numbers from the most recent year we have complete numbers with, and I'm going to tell you something about this. This was like the worst year we had in decades, in almost 40 years of California Library Literacy Services. And the reason why was because of the pandemic. And we had a lot of people who couldn't come to the library or were unwilling to work with people one-on-one. But even in that terrible year, we reached over 21,000 adults and family members. We provided over 300,000 hours of tutoring. There was $17 million of local library investment to match a $7 million state investment. The value of volunteer time pretty much equal the amount of state dollars. We gave away nearly 70,000 books for people's home libraries to build their own libraries to keep. And we helped adult learners meet over 17,000 goals in their lives. So we are coming up to the 40th anniversary of California Library Literacy Services. And one of the things that's happened in every anniversary year is that we've found a time and a place to celebrate library literacy. And this really began with the 10th anniversary in 1994. And one of the ways we celebrated is by making a movie. And so we have these great film clips and great video clips throughout the 40-year history of California Library Literacy Services. But I'm going to go back to that first celebratory film from the 10th year anniversary, and it's a film called Enrique's Story. And so now we're going to take a little movie break. I want you guys to get out your handkerchiefs, and we're going to watch this video, Enrique's Story. But before we watch, I'm going to ask you to think about a couple questions while we're watching. One is, in this film, when you're watching it, what's the most memorable part for you? What's the part that really hits you hardest? And then also while you're watching, I want you to ask yourself, what were the ways in which Enrique's low literacy skills affected his life? How was his life shaped by his literacy skills? So Kathy or Lisa, which one of you can run the film, we're going to take a little movie break and watch about 7 minutes of a movie and prepare yourself for a little emotional roller coaster when we listen to the story of Enrique. And I'm not getting the sound yet. So why don't we pause it for a minute and make sure the sound is enabled? Is that okay?
I am hearing the sound.
You are hearing the sound. Are you
but
playing it,
nobody-
Kathy?
Yeah, nobody else is hearing the sound?
Can you just put in chat if you heard the sound? No,
No.
Chris, no, there is a control. And somebody's
Oh.
gonna help us here and tell us what that control is with YouTube.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Let's see. Because
Lisa.
when I played it for Lisa and Paul, they could hear.
Well, let's see.
Can anybody help us here? So sorry, we actually did a little dry run.
So I know there are people here who have the ability to help us. When you share screen, there's a box for sound sharing. So Anna, show us where that is when you share your screen.
Okay, I'm gonna stop share.
So when you click to share your screen in the little pop-up box that you see, there is a little box that you're supposed to check mark to also share your sound.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just very strange because, oh, here we go. Just a sec. Okay.
And now you can see why I asked Kathy and Lisa to share the movie.
Well, no, I've never had this, and it's so weird because I didn't do that little checkbox when we were doing our preview. So thank you. Okay, let's try this. I
Thank you,
checked
Anna.
it.
I can hear it now.
At age 6, Enrique Ramirez was like a lot of other first graders.
I think my mom was real proud of me. I know I was proud. I was going to do something. I was a Boy Scout. Learn how to tie them knots and do the right things. One thing I never did read that book that they gave us. We got 31 kids in here. And I'll just tell you the ones that could read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of them were the smart ones in the class. All of us had reading and writing problems. Nobody knew. Guess that's where it started.
Of the millions of children who start school each year, 2 out of 10 do not learn to read or write.
I started hanging around some other guys. We started getting into a lot of things, started getting into trouble. We started breaking into our schools. We started a lot of fights and riots up at our school. The teachers went on strike. We trashed the school.
3 out of 10 students drop out before finishing high school.
9th grade, I thought that was it for me. Tried to hang myself in the basement. I couldn't do it. It just broke and snapped. I fell. That's where I thought my life was gonna be. I was gonna end up in the street. Something happened, and I slipped through the system.
Of the students who do finish high school, 1 out of 4 still lacks basic literacy skills.
It's scary when you can't go shopping, or it's your doctor says, I want you to go to x-rays. Go down the hall, you'll see the signs. You go down the hall and just take an elevator and go home. You're missing something, and it's scary.
It's estimated that as much as half of America's workforce has reading and writing problems.
I work in the airline industry, and I was what we call a cargo handler. They offered me a job in management. I was ready to quit because I was scared. I have to do more paperwork. I have to read, I have to write, I got to do more things. I can't do that. But to tell them that I can't read and can't write, I'd get fired.
When parents can't read and write, their children are twice as likely to lack literacy.
What brought me to learn how to read and write was actually, it was my son. Now I see my son coming up to me, asking me to read him a bedtime story. And I'm pushing him away. Any other parent who can read and write. That is no problem. But my problem was I couldn't do this little simple thing. I mean, if your son was to come up to you and ask you to pour a glass of milk and you don't have the hands to do it, then you would understand, because that's what it's like. You're helpless. And what do you have? Anger. And I was tired of anger. I was tired of having my self-esteem down, and I didn't want to pass that on.
At 28, Enrique found out about a nearby library literacy program.
So I was laying in bed one night, and I seen this advertisement on TV about some guy who didn't know how to read and write, and he's going through a reading program. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I write the number down, and I call. 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to learn. I want to learn to read now. So I call them up, and they asked me, to come on down. They gave me the address. So I went down there, and I was nervous. Parked my truck, realized it was a library. This is weird. Library. I thought people just went to a library to read, but libraries do other things. They hooked me up with a tutor. We go, we meet, and she asked me, what do you want to do? All I want to do is read a bedtime story. That's all I want to do now. And I tell you, that was the hardest book in my life, but it was the most beautiful book I ever read in my life, because it's probably the only book I ever read in my life. My tutor, I think, has a lot of patience, because I'm pretty tough. I can't get it. I get frustrated. I'll put my pencil down. I don't get it. But she doesn't get mad. She doesn't get a ruler out and spank my hand, and she doesn't sit me in the corner. I don't need that. I'm a grown man. I have a problem. She understands it.
Every year, library literacy programs change the lives of thousands of people.
It's given me the ability to go from state to state, knowing where I'm going, besides recognizing a tree or a building. It's given me the ability to go see my son when he was born, because I knew where it said newborn. It's given me the ability to read a book. It's given me the ability to go get the right medicine for my children or for my wife. It's given me a second chance of life. I first started working at United, and they're computerized. And it's scary because I had no idea to use a computer. And I remember this friend of mine knew I had a problem. And he showed me step by step by step how to use the keys. He taught me. Now I do it. Now I go up to it. Boom. Do-doom, doom, done, bang, gone. Hey, this thing, it ain't nothing. I'm proud. I'll buy me 10,000 computers. I'll run them all. I feel good now. I always wanted to write something to my father. I wanted to tell him how I miss him. I wanted to tell him how I really, really felt about him. Because we were never close. And by putting it on paper meant a lot to me. I messed up on the spelling, I messed up on punctuation, I messed up on everything. But again, the words meant something to me.
After a few years in the program, Enrique passed his GED test.
I never graduated from high school. I don't know what it's like. I want to. I'd love to walk off stage in a cap and gown, but I don't think I'll ever see that. This is what happened. I slipped. I'm one of thousands of people. My son is not going to be a part of that cycle. My daughter's not going to be a part of that cycle. My child is going to know how to read. And I'm not going to let my son have the same problems that I have. It's time for him to be better than I am. We're together. Learning together. It's a good picture. I like that one.
Kathy, thank you so much for running that video. And I understand that that video was actually probably made before some of you were born, and there was a reason to go back to the archives for it, because it is such an inspiring story. So exactly. So hopefully it didn't feel too dated for you. Kathy, if you can pop the slides back up, I want to show everyone what we're going to do next. And that is, we're going to talk about these two questions, and that is, what was memorable to you about Enrique's story, and how did low literacy skills affect his life? So, yes, thank you, Dora, for saying that. The library helps you a lot. So Lisa or Kathy, can we just pop up that screen with the questions about Enrique and then the instructions about the Jamboard? And then we're going to get going. We're going to do some work here. So Lisa, that's the Jamboard. But do we have, can somebody get the slides up? Thanks. Thank you. So here's the question. I really appreciate, Lisa, the support here. What was memorable to you about Enrique's story, and how did his low literacy skills affect his life? I know you all have questions for that. And Lisa, if you can go to the next slide, here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to use a tool that's called a Google Jamboard. And it does depend on you having an internet connection and a screen. We know you have an internet connection and a screen. And if you are able to do this, what we're going to do is use this Jamboard, and we want you to click on this link to the Jamboard to open up. And I'm going to now, Lisa, I'm going to share my Jamboard screen so that everybody can see what it looks like, if that's okay with you.
I put the link also into the chat box.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I see that a bunch of people have joined. If you're having trouble, I know we don't have everybody there, but if you'd like, if you can use the link in the chat and see this Jamboard. Jamboard is a collaborative learning environment where you can put your notes up on something where everybody else can see it. And thank you, somebody already knows how to use it. The way to use it is to look on the left side, and the fourth thing down is a sticky note. And I'm going to put a sticky note out too. What were some of the ways that low literacy affected Enrique's life? So some people are putting some answers up here. We see low self-esteem, unable to receive adequate health care. If everybody can just put up a sticky note, and once they stack up, so we're going to move them around. So once you write one, move yours around. There's a lot of them hiding here. So keep asking your note. This is great. And if it turns out to be small print, we can make it bigger. How fun is this? We're populating it. So we have a lot of, he couldn't read to his son. His skills made him feel embarrassed. I'm going to put that in your low self-esteem. He felt scared. He felt frustration. He felt anger. I'm going to put some notes up too. Lisa and Paul, feel free to contribute some notes. Anything else we want to put up here? I love this Jamboard. This is really great. I'm going to move some family stuff here. Absolutely. So you see, I'm starting to move things around here. And I'm bunching them up by different areas. And one is economic. So I think that a lot of times when people think about some of the challenges of low literacy, right, we think about the economic challenges. It's super hard to get a good job if you struggle with reading and writing. But all of a sudden, you guys are identifying all of these other challenges too. So I'm going to move the career ones over here. I was afraid he was going to leave his job. But here's another one people don't think about very often. Did you ever think about the health costs to low literacy? Oops, it got hidden. Look at that. Remember, he was unable to, he had trouble navigating everyday tasks like going to the doctor. He was unable to go get x-rays, right? So there's health costs that are associated with low literacy. And those health costs, dollars and cents, are some of the most expensive costs associated with low literacy. If you don't get preventive care, everything costs more. If you have to go to the emergency room because you're not getting regular care, it costs more. If you don't take care of yourself early on, right, all along, you're likely to incur much higher healthcare costs. If you don't get the test you need because you can't read the paperwork. So, and look at this. I mean, I'm seeing all these other ones that I think I might characterize as emotional or mental health cost to literacy that we don't think about. He felt shame, he felt anxiety, he felt depressed. He contemplated suicide, he felt helpless, he was frustrated and angry, saw himself as not one of the smart kids. And then we also see that what I'm going to call social costs. You guys have identified so many of these. And when I do tutor training, I have done this a million different ways, but social costs, the personal costs, mental health issues, low self-esteem, but also acting out in school, bad effect on his family and society, couldn't read signs, just being able to function in society, could move healthcare down here. And I'm going to say there are also costs that we never think about that are family and personal costs. Not just those personal emotional costs, but costs in your family, right? He couldn't help his wife cook dinner because he couldn't read the instructions on a box. He couldn't read to his child. He was motivated to read to his son, right? This all affected his ability to interact with kids. So these are all the ways that low literacy skills affected Enrique's life. So you guys might not have identified this all. Look at all this stuff. It's all, you have so much on here, you buried the Jamboard, right? But all of these ways that low literacy affect life. And I think a lot of times folks come to library literacy programs as volunteers because they love reading and they can't imagine not reading a book for pleasure. But what's important for volunteers to understand, and also for learners to understand it's okay to express, is that low literacy can have lots of different effects. You're not being able to participate fully in society. You don't feel safe voting. You don't feel comfortable voting. You don't feel that you have the ability. That you feel there are emotional costs. You feel sad. You feel depressed. You feel very anxious. There are health costs. There are economic costs. And there are family costs. And a lot of times we don't even think about those costs. So I want to thank you guys for helping me do this exercise, which is so important for understanding what some of the effects of low literacy are. If everybody can turn your screen back on for a sec. I know we just talked a lot about problems. Go ahead and turn the screens back on. I know we just talked a lot about problems. And a lot of times when we talk about AmeriCorps and we talk about public service, or it's like, we're going to solve a problem. But I also wanted to do this exercise because I think it's so important to see this film and understand that we're not all about problems. We're about working with people and understanding that those folks offer assets. And so I just put that word asset into the chat. So if you saw this movie, Enrique Story, about this guy who's telling his own story, what assets does he have? What are great things about him that you saw in this film? You can just put them into chat, or you can turn your mic on and say whatever words come to your mind. Dedication.
Well, he had a lot of drive in terms of he wanted to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Dedication, drive, he's determined. He had perseverance. Absolutely. These are great words. He was so determined. He was a family that seemed supportive, and he cared so much about his family, right? This is a tremendous asset. He loved his family. He did this to help his family. He was so passionate about doing well. Thank you, Dan. This is great comments. He had a family who was supported. He was so aware of his goal to break the cycle for his son. I always say when I see this film, Enrique's Story, that this is the guy I wanted to be my next door neighbor. What a terrific guy. right? What a wonderful guy. He's so articulate. He tells his story. He's such a hard worker. He's scared at work, but a friend teaches him how to do it. And I know those were very old computers for a lot of you, right? But he masters it and he can go on. He can overcome challenges. He's proud of himself. He was very aware. And he does say, I don't know what it's going to feel like to get that diploma, to walk across that stage. And I have to tell you, actually, one of the things that happened is he did get his GED and he walked across the stage in front of a whole bunch of folks from California Library Literacy Services libraries. And if you can imagine a room full of weeping librarians and library staff. Kathy, were you there? No, you were not there. He was able to accomplish these goals. So here's a person who sets goals and accomplishes goals. And so I wanted to have this story where you understand the tremendous human cost, the personal cost, the emotional cost, the social cost, the family cost, the economic cost, the healthcare cost of low literacy. But yet you also understand that all of the folks that we work with and all of the people that we are too, we all have assets, we all have strengths, we can all develop confidence, we can all be aware, and we can all reach our goals. And that's what I love so much about this film. I hope that you always remember this film. And if anyone can guess, I know it may be in the back of your mind, if anyone can guess who the narrator of that film was, if you were here, I would give you $1. Do anybody recognize that voice of that narrator? Paul, I know Paul does because he was around when the movie was made. We'll let you, what we're gonna do, if it's okay with you, Lisa, Paul, and Kathy, we're gonna take a 10-minute break right now. And so you guys can get up, get that favorite junk food, get your wiggles out, maybe get a breath of fresh air, and come back at 3:36. And I will reveal the story. If you want to look up YouTube, Enrique's story, and figure out who the narrator is, hear that voice again, you can tell us. I don't have a prize to give you because this is the virtual world, but I'll see you all at 3:36. We'll come back and we're going to talk about California Library Literacy Services. Thank you so much for all your great contributions to the Jamboard. Good work. Well, we'll see if anybody guesses. Don't break the secret.
I'm sorry, Bev, I lost my Zoom controls there for a moment.
Oh, that's quite all right. That's why I always do that. And so that's why I asked Lisa and you to help. And I was like, whoever can
No,
help.
I was like, oh my gosh, Zoom suddenly disappeared and all I'm seeing is the screen. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for bearing with me.
And wasn't Enrique's story up for an Oscar?
Was
that
it?
I don't know. Now that's a great story. You're gonna have to
I
go
think
to the
so. I'll look it up. But
Oh,
right.
I did. I've never heard
I
that.
didn't get it, but I thought it was
Well, it should have.
nominated.
Well, I'm going to go take my break too, and I'll be back
All
in 5
right.
minutes. Kathy, is it okay with you? Can you share the slides after this? Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can see why after doing it for so long, I no longer want to run my own slides.
Yeah, no, and if Lisa, is Lisa back or Paul back?
Paul was here, but then
I'm back.
You're back, great.
Yep, so we're having a storm here. And so just in case, it should be fine. Just in case if somebody can take over.
Up over, okay, no
But
problem.
it should be fine.
Yeah, it's good that we're getting some rain.
I'm totally thrilled. So
Yeah.
the peacocks are not. They're all sitting, looking very forlorn. In the...
Dogs hiding under the bed. Is there any lightning? Thunder?
Not for us. It's getting looming, but we've had some rain, but not enough.
No, for some reason, the dogs, whenever both my husband and I are on a Zoom at the same time, they decide to play loudly. So I just had to go tell them to be quiet.
94. And one of the ways we celebrated is by making a movie. And so we have these great film clips and great video clips throughout the 40-year history of California Library Literacy Services. But I'm going to go back to that first celebratory film from the 10th year anniversary, and it's a film called Enrique's Story. And so now we're going to take a little movie break. I want you guys to get out your handkerchiefs, and we're going to watch this video, Enrique's Story. But before we watch, I'm going to ask you to think about a couple questions while we're watching. One is, in this film, when you're watching it, what's the most memorable part for you? What's the part that really hits you hardest? And then also while you're watching, I want you to ask yourself, what were the ways in which Enrique's low literacy skills affected his life? How was his life shaped by his literacy skills? So Kathy or Lisa, whoever, which one of you can run the film, we're going to take a little movie break and watch about 7 minutes of a movie and prepare yourself for a little emotional roller coaster when we listen to the story of Enrique. And I'm not getting the sound yet. So why don't we pause it for a minute and make sure the sound is enabled? Is that okay?
I am hearing the sound.
You are hearing the sound. Are you playing it, Kathy?
Yeah, nobody else is hearing the sound?
Can you just put in chat if you heard the sound? No, Chris, no, there is a control. And somebody's going to help us here and tell us what that control is with YouTube.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Let's see. Because when I played it for Lisa and Paul, they could hear.
Well, let's see.
Can anybody help us here? So sorry, we actually did a little dry run.
So I know there are people here who have the ability to help us. When you share screen, there's a box for sound sharing. So Anna, show us where that is when you share your screen.
Okay, I'm gonna stop share.
So when you click to share your screen in the little pop-up box that you see, there is a little box that you're supposed to check mark to also share your sound.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just very strange because, oh, here we go. Just a sec. Okay.
And now you can see why I asked Kathy and Lisa to share the movie.
Well, no, I've never had this, and it's so weird because I didn't do that little checkbox when we were doing our preview. So thank you. Okay, let's try this. I
Thank you,
checked
Anna.
it.
I can hear it now.
At age 6, Enrique Ramirez was like a lot of other first graders.
I think my mom was real proud of me. I know I was proud. I was gonna do something. I was a Boy Scout. Learn how to tie them knots and do the right things. One thing I never did read that book that they gave us. We got 31 kids in here, and I'll just tell you the ones that could read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of them were the smart ones in the class. All of us had reading and writing problems. Nobody knew. Guess that's where it started.
Of the millions of children who start school each year, 2 out of 10 do not learn to read or write.
I started hanging around some other guys. We started getting into a lot of things, started getting into trouble. We started breaking into our schools. We started a lot of fights and riots up at our school. The teachers went on strike. We trashed the school.
3 out of 10 students drop out before finishing high school.
9th grade, I thought that was it for me. Tried to hang myself in the basement. I couldn't do it. It just broke and snapped. I fell. That's where I thought my life was gonna be. I was gonna end up in the street. Something happened, and I slipped through the system.
Of the students who do finish high school, 1 out of 4 still lacks basic literacy skills.
It's scary when you can't go shopping, or it's your doctor says, I want you to go to x-rays. Go down the hall, you'll see the signs. You go down the hall and just take an elevator and go home. You're missing something, and it's scary.
It's estimated that as much as half of America's workforce has reading and writing problems.
I work in the airline industry, and I was what we call a cargo handler. They offered me a job in management. I was ready to quit because I was scared. I have to do more paperwork. I have to read, I have to write, I got to do more things. I can't do that. But to tell them that I can't read and can't write, I'd get fired.
When parents can't read and write, their children are twice as likely to lack literacy.
What brought me to learn how to read and write was it was my son. Now I see my son coming up to me, asking me to read him a bedtime story. And I'm pushing him away. Any other parent who can read and write, that is no problem. But my problem was I couldn't do this little simple thing. I mean, if your son was to come up to you and ask you to pour a glass of milk and you don't have the hands to do it, then you would understand, because that's what it's like. You're helpless. And what do you have? Anger. And I was tired of anger. I was tired of having my self-esteem down, and I didn't want to pass that on.
At 28, Enrique found out about a nearby library literacy program.
So I was laying in bed one night, and I seen this advertisement on TV about some guy who didn't know how to read and write, and he's going through a reading program. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I write the number down, and I call. 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to learn. I want to learn to read now. So I call them up, and they asked me, to come on down. They gave me the address. So I went down there, and I was nervous. Parked my truck, realized it was a library. This is weird. Library. I thought people just went to a library to read, but libraries do other things. They hooked me up with a tutor. We go, we meet, and she asked me, what do you want to do? All I want to do is read a bedtime story. That's all I want to do now. And I tell you, that was the hardest book in my life, but it was the most beautiful book I ever read in my life, because it's probably the only book I ever read in my life. My tutor, I think, has a lot of patience, because I'm pretty tough. I can't get it. I get frustrated. I'll put my pencil down. I don't get it. But she doesn't get mad. She doesn't get a ruler out and spank my hand, and she doesn't sit me in the corner. I don't need that. I'm a grown man. I have a problem. She understands it.
Every year, library literacy programs change the lives of thousands of people.
It's given me the ability to go from state to state, knowing where I'm going, besides recognizing a tree or a building. It's given me the ability to go see my son when he was born, because I knew where it said newborn. It's given me the ability to read a book. It's given me the ability to go get the right medicine for my children or for my wife. It's given me a second chance of life. I first started working at United, and they're computerized. And it's scary because I had no idea how to use a computer. And I remember this friend of mine knew I had a problem. And he showed me step by step by step how to use the keys. He taught me, now I do it. Now I go up to it, boom, do-doom, doom, done, bang, gone. Hey, this thing, it ain't nothing. I'm proud. I'll buy me 10,000 computers. I'll run them all. I feel good now. I always wanted to write something to my father. I wanted to tell him how I miss him. I wanted to tell him how I really, really felt about him. Because we were never close. And by putting it on paper meant a lot to me. I messed up on the spelling, I messed up on punctuation, I messed up on everything. But again, the words meant something to me.
After a few years in the program, Enrique passed his GED test.
I never graduated from high school. I don't know what it's like. I want to. I'd love to walk off stage in a cap and gown, but I don't think I'll ever see that. This is what happened. I slipped. I'm one of thousands of people. My son is not going to be a part of that cycle. My daughter's not going to be a part of that cycle. My child is going to know how to read. And I'm not going to let my son have the same problems that I have. It's time for him to be better than I am. We're together. Learning together. It's a good picture. I like that one.
Kathy, thank you so much for running that video. And I understand that that video was actually probably made before some of you were born. And there was a reason to go back to the archives for it, because it is such an inspiring story. So exactly. So hopefully it didn't feel too dated for you. Kathy, if you can pop the slides back up, I want to show everyone what we're going to do next. And that is, we're going to talk about these two questions, and that is, what was memorable to you about Enrique's story, and how did low literacy skills affect his life? So, yes, thank you, Dora, for saying that. The library helps you a lot. So Lisa or Kathy, can we just pop up that screen with the questions about Enrique and then the instructions about the Jamboard? And then we're going to get going. We're going to do some work here. So Lisa, that's the Jamboard, but do we have, can somebody get the slides up? Thanks. Thank you. So here's the question. I really appreciate, Lisa, the support here. What was memorable to you about Enrique's story, and how did his low literacy skills affect his life? I know you all have questions for that. And Lisa, if you can go to the next slide, here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to use a tool that's called a Google Jamboard. And it does depend on you having an internet connection and a screen. We know you have an internet connection and a screen. And if you are able to do this, what we're going to do is use this Jamboard, and we want you to click on this link to the Jamboard to open up. And I'm going to now, Lisa, I'm going to share my Jamboard screen so that everybody can see what it looks like, if that's okay with you.
I put the link also into the chat box.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I see that a bunch of people have joined. If you're having trouble, I know we don't have everybody there, but if you'd like, if you can use the link in the chat and see this Jamboard. Jamboard is a collaborative learning environment where you can put your notes up on something where everybody else can see it. And thank you, somebody already knows how to use it. The way to use it is to look on the left side, and the fourth thing down is a sticky note. And I'm going to put a sticky note out too. What were some of the ways that low literacy affected Enrique's life? So some people are putting some answers up here. We see low self-esteem, unable to receive adequate health care. If everybody can just put up a sticky note, and once they stack up, so we're going to move them around. So once you write one, move yours around. There's a lot of them hiding here. So keep asking your notes. This is great. And if it turns out to be small print, we can make it bigger. How fun is this? We're populating it. So we have a lot of, he couldn't read to his son. His skills made him feel embarrassed. I'm going to put that near low self-esteem. He felt scared. He felt frustration. He felt anger. I'm going to put some notes up too. Lisa and Paul, feel free to contribute some notes. Anything else we want to put up here? I love this Jamboard. This is really great. I'm going to move some family stuff here. Absolutely. So you see, I'm starting to move things around here. And I'm bunching them up by different areas. And one is economic. So I think that a lot of times when people think about some of the challenges of low literacy, right, we think about the economic challenges. It's super hard to get a good job if you struggle with reading and writing. But all of a sudden, you guys are identifying all of these other challenges too. So I'm going to move the career ones over here. I was afraid he was going to leave his job. But here's another one people don't think about very often. Did you ever think about the health cost to low literacy? Oops, it got hidden. Look at that. Remember, he was unable to, he had trouble navigating everyday tasks like going to the doctor. He was unable to go get x-rays, right? So there's health costs that are associated with low literacy. And those health costs, dollars and cents, are some of the most expensive costs associated with low literacy. If you don't get preventive care, everything costs more. If you have to go to the emergency room because you're not getting regular care, it costs more. If you don't take care of yourself early on, right, all along, you're likely to incur much higher healthcare costs. If you don't get the test you need because you can't read the paperwork. So, and look at this. I'm seeing all these other ones that I think I might characterize as emotional or mental health cost to literacy that we don't think about. He felt shame, he felt anxiety, he felt depressed. He contemplated suicide, he felt helpless, he was frustrated and angry, saw himself as not one of the smart kids. And then we also see that what I'm going to call social costs. You guys have identified so many of these. And when I do tutor training, I have done this a million different ways, but social costs, the personal costs, mental health issues, low self-esteem, but also acting out in school, bad effect on his family and society, couldn't read signs, just being able to function in society. Going to move healthcare down here. And I'm going to say there are also costs that we never think about that are family and personal costs, not just those personal emotional costs, but costs in your family, right? He couldn't help his wife cook dinner because he couldn't read the instructions on a box. He couldn't read to his child. He was motivated to read to his son, right? This all affected his ability to interact with kids. So these are all the ways that low literacy skills affected Enrique's life. So you guys might not have identified this all. Look at all this stuff. It's all, you have so much on here, you buried the Jamboard, right? But all of these ways that low literacy affect life. And I think a lot of times folks come to library literacy programs as volunteers because they love reading and they can't imagine not reading a book for pleasure. But what's important for volunteers to understand, and also for learners to understand it's okay to express, is that low literacy can have lots of different effects. You're not being able to participate fully in society. You don't feel safe voting. You don't feel comfortable voting. You don't feel that you have the ability. That you feel there are emotional costs. You feel sad. You feel depressed. You feel very anxious. There are health costs. There are economic costs. And there are family costs. And a lot of times we don't even think about those costs. So I want to thank you guys for helping me do this exercise, which is so important for understanding what some of the effects of low literacy are. If everybody can turn your screen back on for a sec. I know we just talked a lot about problems. Go ahead and turn the screens back on. I know we just talked a lot about problems. And a lot of times when we talk about AmeriCorps and we talk about public service, or it's like, we're going to solve a problem. But I also wanted to do this exercise because I think it's so important to see this film and understand that we're not all about problems. We're about working with people and understanding that those folks offer assets. And so I just put that word asset into the chat. So if you guys, you saw this movie, Enrique Story, about this guy who's telling his own story, what assets does he have? What are great things about him that you saw in this film? You can just put them into chat, or you can turn your mic on and say whatever words come to your mind. Dedication.
Well, he had a lot of drive in terms of he wanted to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Dedication, drive, he's determined. He had perseverance. Absolutely. These are great words. He was so determined. He was a family that seemed supportive, and he cared so much about his family, right? This is a tremendous asset. He loved his family. He did this to help his family. He was so passionate about doing well. Thank you, Diana. This is great comments. He had a family who was supportive. He was so aware of his goal to break the cycle for his son. I always say when I see this film, Enrique's Story, that this is the guy I wanted to be my next door neighbor. What a terrific guy, right? What a wonderful guy. He's so articulate. He tells his story. He's such a hard worker. He's scared at work, but a friend teaches him how to do it. And I know those were very old computers for a lot of you, right? But he masters it and he can go on. He can overcome challenges. He's proud of himself. He was very aware. And he does say, I don't know what it's going to feel like to get that diploma, to walk across that stage. And I have to tell you, actually, one of the things that happened is he did get his GED and he walked across the stage in front of a whole bunch of folks from California Library Literacy Services libraries. And if you can imagine a room full of weeping librarians and library staff. Kathy, were you there? No, you were not there. He was able to accomplish these goals. So here's the person who sets goals and accomplishes goals. And so I wanted to have this story where you understand the tremendous human cost, the personal cost, the emotional cost, the social cost, the family cost, the economic cost, the healthcare cost of low literacy. But yet you also understand that all of the folks that we work with and all of the people that we are too, we all have assets, we all have strengths, we can all develop confidence, we can all be aware, and we can all reach our goals. And that's what I love so much about this film. I hope that you always remember this film. And if anyone can guess, I know it may be in the back of your mind, if anyone can guess who the narrator of that film was, if you were here, I would give you $1. Do anybody recognize that voice of that narrator? Paul, I know Paul does because he was around when the movie was made. we'll let you, what we're gonna do, if it's okay with you, Lisa, Paul, and Kathy, we're gonna take a 10-minute break right now. And so you guys can get up, get that favorite junk food, get your wiggles out, maybe get a breath of fresh air, and come back at 3:36. And I will reveal the story. If you want to look up YouTube Enrique's story and figure out who the narrator is, hear that voice again, you can tell us. I don't have a prize to give you because this is the virtual world, but I'll see you all at 3:36. We'll come back and we're going to talk about California Library Literacy Services. Thank you so much for all your great contributions to the Jamboard. Good work. 36, and everyone should be coming back. So I'm going to get started. And we're going to share the slides. Although if anyone cares, there's the link to Enrique's story on the YouTube link there if you want to keep it and rewatch it. And as people are filtering back from your break and your snack time, if anybody has a guess as to who that narrator was, Paul's not going to say, I'm not going to say, Kathy knows, she's not going to say, you know who that narrator was for Enrique's story. If we don't get the answer today, that's okay, because you guys can go back and figure it out. And there's a reason why I didn't ask you before you watched the film. When I gave you those questions in advance to think about, I didn't ask you, and who's the narrator? Because if everyone was watching the film, everyone would have spent all their time focusing on identifying the narrator rather than watching the story. So I really wanted you guys to watch the story, Enrique's story. But if anyone has any ideas about who was that narrator, who that narrator was on Enrique's story, that wonderful deep voice.
We have one guess, Bev.
We do? Morgan Freeman is an excellent guess, but it's not right.
It's another person who often is
Morgan Freeman narrates a ton. He is on a ton of stuff. Go back.
Can we give them a hint?
No, we're going to let them, if they don't get it this time, we're going to come back on Wednesday and talk about it. But who was that narrator? Okay, I am ready to jump back in talking about California Library Literacy Services. And I want to tell you that over the last 3 or 4 years, California Library Literacy Services has, it's not Lawrence Fishburne, Daniel, but that's a good guess. But now I'm going to stop and I'm going to turn back to CLLS. Over the last 3 years, California Library Literacy Services embarked upon a strategic planning and reflection period. And one of the things we did was really come up with what is our mission and what are our core values and the key principles for our operation. And I want to share those with you because all of you will be working for the cause of California Library Literacy Services over the next year. And it's really important to me that you know what CLLS is all about and be able to represent it in the community. I don't care whether you know internally, all I care is that you tell this story. I mean, obviously I do care if you know it internally, but I want you to be able to tell this story because it's so important to know. It's important for all of our constituents. It's important for adult learners. It's important for our volunteer tutors, and it's important for AmeriCorps members, and it's important for all library staff members to know. So here's our mission, California Library Literacy Services, and you'll see I highlighted partners with adults, right? Not serves adults, not offers services to adults, but partners with adults, right? Because the partner, Enrique is as key a partner in his education as the librarian, as his volunteer tutor. CLLS partners with adults to enable adults to develop their literacy skills, achieve their learning goals, and use library services effectively. And we saw Enrique do all 3 of those things. CLLS exists to create opportunities for individuals, families, and communities across California. So when we look at those goals, we break it down into 7 key principles. And so if we can go to the next slide, Kathy, the first is I actually combined 2 of them. And that CLLS are there services that are library-based and they're core library services. What do we mean by that? And so next slide. For library-based services, here's what we mean. We believe that public libraries are uniquely suited to providing good literacy services. They're not schools, but libraries are trusted spaces in the heart of their community. They provide welcoming, inclusive, and supportive environments for learning. And the library contains resources and services that support lifelong learning. The program essentials that go with this value are that literacy services are anchored in the public library. And for those of you who are serving, know that our key values are tutoring is provided in the public library. And in the cases when tutoring and literacy instruction is provided elsewhere in the community, a strong connection to the library is made and maintained for all enrolled learners. So some of you may be serving at sites where you're doing tutoring, you're doing instruction off-site from the library, but remember, the anchor is the public library, and if tutoring is provided elsewhere, you always want to make that connection to the public library. You always want to let people know, I'm here from the library, I'm connected to the library. Part of that is we support all of our volunteers, and we support all of our learners and their families in getting a library card, because that's the way to access library resources. We also connect learners to library services and the resources to help them and their families succeed. And we also want you to work with other folks in the libraries so that program staff working for CLLS, and that includes AmeriCorps members, help create a supportive and welcoming environment within the library for learners and their families. That's really important to us. The next value on the next slide, that CLLS is a core library service. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. That literacy services are seen as contributing to the library's mission to provide equity of access to lifelong learning opportunities. And at CLLS, that's what we're about. We're about equity. We're about making sure that people have what they need to reach the goals they want. The program essentials that deal with core library service are that our local libraries provide funding and resources to support library literacy services. The funding doesn't all come from the state, it comes from the communities that you guys work in. We also know that for us, the value of literacy services as a core library service means that library administration assigns dedicated professional staff to work in library literacy services, and all of you members will be working with supervisors who are those professional dedicated staff. Those program staff and you are closely connected with the library administration and with other library staff. We consider it incumbent upon you in your AmeriCorps year to become part of the library, to meet other library staff, to let them know what you're doing and find out what they're doing so that you can be part of one functioning library, one functioning community, and demonstrate the value of literacy services as a core library service. We always want library literacy services to be included in the library's story, but we also want your library's branding to be on all literacy materials that you take out so that the association is made with the library. And we always want to make sure this is a fundamental part of literacy as a core library service, is that everything is available at no cost. You will hear this throughout the year. There are people who will tell you, oh, people would value this service so much more if they had to pay for it. We don't pay for anything at the public library. That's a core library value. Resources and services are available at no cost. And that's what we mean when literacy is a core library service. The next important value is that CLLS services are learner-driven. And that's a really unique role. Learner-driven services empower learners to find their voice and strengths and achieve their goals in their major life roles as lifelong learners, family members, workers, and community members. And you'll hear those 4 goals repeated often: lifelong learner, family member, worker, and community member. So the next slide, learner-driven services benefit the individual learner, help to build stronger workplaces, families, and communities, and add value to the library literacy program. Why did we include this goofy slide where you're looking at something dangling from someone's rearview mirror? What's really important is that there are 2 people in this car. And the person who's at the driver's wheel is the learner. A learner always steers their education. A tutor, an AmeriCorps member, a library staff member can be a coach, can be this person supporting them, can be the person in the passenger seat, but the learner is always driving their own education. And that is what is unique about California Library Literacy Services. If you go to adult school, you may have goals, but the school is going to tell you how to accomplish them. In the library, you have goals, and the library supports you in achieving those goals. So the next slide The program essentials that deal with the learner-driven goal and the learner-driven nature of California Library Literacy Services are that adult learners set personal goals that guide instruction and shape learning. So if you're working as part of your AmeriCorps service as a tutor, your goal is not to figure out the great things to learn and teach that person. It's to work with a learner and help them express their goals and help them reach their goals. If you're an adult learner who's working with other adult learners, you play such a key role in helping them feel comfortable in expressing what they want to learn. A lot of times people are afraid, just like Enrique was when he came to the library. But when they find out that learning is about their goals, it really changes things. So I just want to honor the adult learners on staff who are part of AmeriCorps and the AmeriCorps members who may have come from the tutoring world or from the education world. You're all about the same thing, which is helping adult learners set personal goals that guide instruction and shape learning. What happens in the library? It's mostly one-to-one tutoring, but there may be small groups, 2 to 8 people, and occasionally larger groups that provide individualized and learner-driven training. Much easier to provide individualized training if it's one-to-one tutoring or a small group. We use a goal-based system to measure learner progress. We don't administer standardized tests, and we'll be talking about how some of the ways to assess learner progress, but we always ask people, what are your goals? And we measure progress against those goals. We offer other kinds of programming, whether those are discussion clubs or book clubs or readers theater, or all kinds of other activities that help learners meet and learn from each other. And we have special initiatives for adult learners, including a leadership institute for adult learners who work on staff in libraries, and adult learners who meet with a statewide adult learner leadership group that meets monthly via Zoom. We also ask learners to get involved in leadership and library programs. And we also connect folks with other resources in their community that will help them achieve their goals. Okay, next slide. A fourth value is that California Library Literacy Services are community focused. And what does that mean? The next slide. We want CLLS to have a strong community presence, and we want CLLS programs to be relevant and responsive to adult learners, their families, and their communities. For example, there was just a pandemic and kids weren't allowed to go to school. One of the things that CLLS programs did so well was to help parents who might not have felt comfortable with technology, who might not have felt comfortable helping their kids with homework, develop that comfort, learn to ask those questions, learn to use that technology, learn what Zoom was, right? So we always try to help create relevant services that are grounded in community knowledge and community needs. So you as AmeriCorps members will help develop services that align with community aspirations, that respond to the diversities in your community, that look at communities not just based on need, but also with an asset-based approach, just as you looked at the story of Enrique. What were his challenges, but also what were his strengths? And really important for you as AmeriCorps members, but also for program staff, is that you foster and connect with other community partners, whether those be community-based organizations, other branches of government, schools, faith-based organizations, whatever they are. Partnership is key to California Library Literacy Services. And the other piece of it is we always ask library literacy programs to develop a cooperative relationship with each other. So you'll have an opportunity to meet and maybe attend some regional literacy networks and trainings. Next value is that CLLS is a volunteer-supported service. Volunteers are crucial to the operation of CLLS. Yes, the state provides money to California Library Literacy Services, but it's not even the money that could run an individual school, probably, right? The money is used to leverage and leverage community resources, including volunteers. And CLLS runs on an army of volunteers. Every year between 10 and 20,000 volunteers across the state. So you as AmeriCorps members are part of that army, but you're also going to be responsible for recruiting part of that army. One of the things that happened in the pandemic, and one of the reasons why pandemic recovery is so important as a goal for this year's AmeriCorps initiative, and why capacity building is so important as a goal for this year's AmeriCorps initiative, is because we do need more tutors. We need more learners and we need more tutors. We had a lot of losses during the pandemic, and tutors and other volunteers are fundamental to the success of CLLS. So we look at the next slide, you'll see that. That volunteers can be strong advocates for the library and literacy services, and they help library literacy programs reflect the library's community. Programs also enrich volunteers' lives, helping them develop expertise, opening meaningful connections with others, and supporting lifelong learning in the community. So our goal as CLLS libraries is that you recruit volunteers who reflect your community's demographic and cultural characteristics, that volunteer tutors be provided with tutor training, just as you will be as volunteers, but you also probably will be helping with. You get that tutor training before you start working with learners, and you keep getting professional development opportunities, and we offer those to tutors on an ongoing training basis. That volunteers are also encouraged to establish and achieve their own goals as volunteers. And that volunteers can serve as ambassadors for library literacy programs, and that we as libraries acknowledge the value of volunteers, both privately as a thank you or a card, and publicly through volunteer recognition events, right? So that's part of our value that CLLS is a volunteer supported service. The sixth value in the next slide is that your staff and volunteers are professionally engaged. And our goal for this year, as AmeriCorps members, you can spend up to 20% of your hours in training. We want you to leave this year feeling like you accomplished something with your community, that you helped adult learners in your community, but also that you got something for yourself, that you were professionally engaged. And so the next slide says that continuing education and training for program staff and volunteers is absolutely fundamental to ensuring high quality adult and family literacy services. So we offer training in regional networks, we offer training statewide through Zoom. There are lots of trainings available asynchronously to you 24 hours a day. We help you discover evidence-based strategies for improving people's literacy, and we support innovation and evaluation and sharing of new techniques. Library literacy programs should be supporting and encouraging a culture of learning and continuing education, whether that is virtual, in-person, experiential, or through open and ongoing communication. And our very last shared value is that CLLS programs support families. Not all library literacy programs offer family literacy, but some do, and some of you will be serving in a family literacy capacity. We know that family literacy services contribute to strong communities and families, and an open and equitable program culture welcomes families and diverse stakeholders and celebrates curiosity, inquiry, and joyful discovery. So the next slide. We base our services on proven practices, and they build on community and family strengths. Family literacy connects and engages families with programming resources and each other so adults can learn new things to use in family life. So the focus in our family literacy services, although they include family members, is always on adult literacy learners and their family members. And program staff can serve in the library or through community outreach. We always include principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion in family services, and we collaborate with other library departments. Libraries are great at serving families with kids, and we want to bring literacy CLLS families into that fold. You are able to reach out to learners who are not yet enrolled in family literacy services, and what we want to do is promote not just learning, but also meaningful social bonds, use of library resources, giveaways so that families can build learning opportunities within their own home, like home libraries, and reflective opportunities. So those are my slides about the principles of California Library Literacy Services. And I am ready to turn it back over to you, Kathy, because I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about CLLS and where we come from, but you're going to be hearing so much more about us throughout the year. CLLS is kind of the mothership, and all of the AmeriCorps members and volunteers and library learners ride along in this great journey on the ocean of learning. So thank you so much for letting me have some time of your day. And Kathy, it is your show. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So, and we'll have a chance to ask Bev some questions. But so how does this translate into what you will be doing during your AmeriCorps service year? So when we applied for the grant from California Volunteers and AmeriCorps, we needed to choose some performance measures to as goals for the year. And so we those performance measures translate into what all AmeriCorps members must participate in, what they must do, and what they may do. And so some of the things that you will definitely be asked to do by your library and your literacy program are to recruit, assess, and tutor learners. And as Bev said, that can look like a variety of things. That can, the tutoring can be one-to-one, that can be in small groups, that can be in larger classes, it can be in conversation groups, it could be in book clubs, whatever, digital literacy, computer literacy classes, or tutoring, whatever you want that to be. Recruiting learners is something that there is a real skill and an art to doing. And we're actually, we have an incredible opportunity. The Florida Literacy Coalition is a statewide organization that does some really cutting edge work in adult and family literacy. And I don't have the date off the top of my head, but they are offering a webinar coming up pretty quickly about recruiting adult literacy learners based on some research that they did. So Florida is a little bit different than California for sure, but we think that we can all, learn from this. And so I'll be sending out an invitation to all of you, and that's site supervisors, member supervisors, and most importantly, AmeriCorps members, inviting you to participate in that webinar. And I've been asked to wait until Wednesday to do that because the organizers want the Florida programs to have first dibs, but I'm really hoping that a lot of you will participate in that because they may have some novel strategies that we haven't tried yet in California that we can learn from. So we will be having support and training on how to recruit learners. Your programs, your libraries and sites will already have some very good ideas for doing that, and they will train you on that. And assessing learners, evaluating the skills and knowledge that they already have, and what are some gaps in their knowledge and skills. And the wonderful thing about CLLS programs is that there is freedom for individual library literacy programs to do what they think is best for their community and their adult and family literacy learners. And so there is no one assessment. In other states, there are standardized assessments that many of us think are not necessarily the most accurate reflection of a learner's skills and knowledge. And so I think it's wonderful that in California libraries, your program will decide what the assessment is. And so your program will be training you on how staff do assessments for your learners. We are always here for support, but assessment is a very individual thing that happens in particular library literacy programs. Also, recruiting and training volunteer tutors is something that you are required as AmeriCorps members to do. And so that might involve outreach programs, that might involve networking opportunities, it might involve social media and publicity, and anything that you can creatively do to bring in more volunteer tutors to your program. And all of your programs will have tutor training already. That is something that it depends on the program, when that happens, how many times a year that happens. But one of the things that you will want to do is to go through your program's tutor training as soon as you possibly can, so that you know what the important skills and knowledge for volunteer tutors to have in your program are. Again, we will provide some information for you about how do you recruit volunteer tutors, what are some training that you might do for them, but those are some very particular and site-specific activities that you will take the lead from your site supervisor and member supervisor on. Bev talked about roles and goals, and this is a sort of, instead of a standardized test, this is a statewide system for really trying to see what are the goals that learners in library literacy programs across the state have in their roles as lifelong learners, community members, family members, and workers. And so you will be learning about roles and goals. There are trainings, there are wonderful resources on the CLLS library. Your program staff can help you and will tell you how you collect that data, but we will also have trainings on it. But that is part of what you will be inputting into the data management system, America Learns, that Lisa will be telling you more about on Wednesday. And in engaging in community outreach. So that might be for the purpose of recruiting learners and volunteer tutors, but it might also just be to raise community awareness, because it's very important that everybody in your community knows that not only is there a public library in their community, but that there is an adult and or family literacy program at the library. So in case they have knowledge of somebody who might want to join the program, is either a learner or a tutor, or to help, maybe they want to be a donor, maybe they have a particular skill, maybe they want to donate equipment. You just want everyone in your community to know what you do and to value what you do. And so there may be art and wine festivals that you go to. There may be, I don't know, put in the chat box. So those of you who are already engaged in community outreach opportunity, and Bev, chime in if you know of different community outreach things. I know that in the programs that I've run, we are partnered with schools, we partnered with adult education programs, we partnered with clubs like Rotary clubs and Lions clubs. So the potential is just enormous for how you can network with others in your community and get out there and tell people about what you do. And then, as we've been talking about, there are lots of opportunities for you to gain training and professional development. There are so many, in fact, that we do want you to be aware of the 20% of your time limit. It would be really easy for you to spend 100% of your time in trainings, because there are really is such a rich opportunity out there for you. And so those will, in these still current days of the pandemic, most of those will be through webinars, and some of them may be live, some of them may be archived. We will give you a lot of resources. And again, a lot of this professional development and training will be general, but much of it might be particular to your own community and the needs of your own tutors and learners in your own site. And so we can absolutely tailor this professional development to meet your needs. Now, those were the things that you must do as an AmeriCorps member in your library literacy program. These are things that you can also do, and we would highly encourage you to do if you have an opportunity to. So learner leadership, as Bev said, this is very important in California. We are the leaders in the country, actually, I think, for learner leadership. And that stems from the whole idea of the learner-centeredness of our programs. And so the learners are what we're all about, right? The learners know what they want to learn about, that we encourage them to take ownership and responsibility of their own learning. And so there are formal opportunities for learner leadership, and Bev will be able to tell you more about those. She touched upon some of them, but there are also more local and informal and less official opportunities for learners to become leaders in your programs. Maybe they participate in some of the outreach events. Maybe they take on roles where they participate in your volunteer tutor trainings. Maybe they participate in some of your orientations or welcoming of your learners. Maybe they do support calls. So there are many, many different ways that learners can take on roles that really help them to promote their own skills and knowledge, and to become more and more deeply involved in your program. And then if you have a family literacy program, not everybody does, but usually in family literacy programs, it's all hands on deck, especially on event nights. And these are so fun. And planning takes time and effort, and actually facilitating the events, executing them takes time and effort. And so I would encourage you, if this is something that your library offers, you might want to get involved in that if that's what your site has planned for you. Okay, so you know what's happening probably in your own library, but we wanted to give you an idea of what's happening across the state. So currently we have 30 libraries who have been awarded AmeriCorps members. And so we have 20 full-time AmeriCorps members, 30 half-time AmeriCorps members, and 20 quarter-time members. So we really are hoping that you will form bonds with other members, that there will be a sense of camaraderie. We will be setting up on the Literacy Works AmeriCorps website, and we'll have opportunities for you to communicate with other members. There will be an AmeriCorps member listserv, a sort of email group where you can communicate without anybody else, no supervisors, no Literacy Works staff, just you as members. And supervisors will also have a listserv where they can communicate and share ideas. There will be opportunities for you to network during trainings and during the National Service Days. So there, ideally, at the end, or there will be 70 members across the state in 30 libraries. You're in the first wave, so good for you. You are onboarding at the very start of this year-long program. Others will be coming in other waves. So you will meet other members as they enroll and get onboarded into libraries later this month and possibly in December as well. Okay. So you may have seen this already. We just wanted to make sure that you know what the benefits are. of being an AmeriCorps member. And so if you're a full-time member, the expectation is that you will serve a minimum of 1,700 hours, and you would be given a living allowance of $25,500 if you're a full-time member, and an education award, as Lisa described, of $10,000. If you're a half-time member, you are to serve a minimum of 900 hours, and for a living allowance of $9,000 and an education award of $3,247.50. And if you're a quarter-time member, you will be serving a minimum of 450 hours for a living allowance of $3,000 and an education award of $1,718.25. And part of the support and training that we can offer you is AmeriCorps has some trainings about how do you survive on this living allowance, right? How do I, what are some other benefits that might be available to me if I need a little more support to make ends meet? So we can talk about that in other trainings, and that will certainly be covered in the member handbook that you'll be getting. So I have not been monitoring the chat. I don't know if anybody else has, but what questions do you have? We've put a lot of information your way so far
Bev
today.
has been monitoring the chat for us, so there's a lot of questions in there with answers.
Well, and I've been putting a lot of information into chat about things you've been talking about, Kathy, so people have the date for the Florida Literacy Coalition
thank you.
Recruiting New Learners event. It's November 17th, and we'll get you the exact time of date out there later this week. And just as Kathy talks about assessment, I wanted to make sure people understood what that term means. So when a new learner comes to the program, we always want to determine where they start, and that should be a warm and friendly process. People came up with great ideas for community partnerships and outreach events. So that was really fun to see in there. I love county fairs. I love working with senior centers and after school care and community college. Those are all great. And I just kept adding a lot of comments. So I didn't see that many other questions, except for I can say it wasn't Morgan Freeman or Lawrence Fishburne for the narrator of Enrique's story. But yeah, why don't we all take a deep breath and just think, if everybody can take a minute and think of one question you might have lingering, and remember that there's no question too small and there's no question too silly and no question that's too revealing, because we make a lot of assumptions, and as adult learner knows. So if adult learners know, there's so many assumptions in this world. So Dora asked, when you finish your 900 hours, can you apply for 1 year more and full time? So Dora, that's a really good question. It's up to your library whether they are participating next year. We anticipate that we will offer this program next year, but it would be starting again at the next year, November 1st. So it would, if you finished your 900 hours in June, you couldn't start July 1st. In the new year, you have to wait until the program year begins, and we're going to be on that cycle November 1st to October 31st. But Dora, many AmeriCorps members have served more than one terms. Many of my AmeriCorps members, when I was a library literacy coordinator, stuck it out for a couple of years because they loved it so much. So probably a quarter to a half of my AmeriCorps members served more than one term. So great question.
And Bev, when do we hope to know whether we are granted a second year?
I think we'll find out in the summer. I think we'll find out actually probably by May. But Dora, you are welcome. Yeah. Other questions? Take a minute and think. I know it's hard. It's some pressure. Oh, Anna has a question. You want to take that one, Kathy?
Yeah. Can we outreach through our personal social media? For example, post flyers, post things about seeking tutors and learners, the services our library offers. I don't think that there are any restrictions on that, to my knowledge. So
yeah, and Kathy, I would add on this one, the library that you're serving with may have a social media policy.
Right.
You want to follow that social media policy. And you probably want to make sure that all the posts are okay. So if you're doing a series of Instagram posts, great idea. but make sure it goes through the proper channels at the library, and it'll take some time to figure that out. Make sure it follows their policy, and they probably do have a policy, because libraries are part of cities and counties and other jurisdictions who have rules. We are serving in institutions that are government institutions. So you want to follow those rules, but a great rule of thumb is follow the library on your personal social media, and you can share it with whoever you want. So if you are starting out right now and you don't follow your library's social media, heck, why don't you go on and join? You can follow the state library social media too, and share all kinds of great stuff out. So
yeah, and you can work with your libraries. I'm sure, you would want to check in with your supervisors, but you can certainly work with your library's social media folks, and perhaps provide them with some fodder so that they can use it. So it can be a partnership with them too. So.
And I'll just add an addendum to that. Any kind of marketing that we do has to use the branding of the AmeriCorps and California Volunteers programs. And so I can provide a link to all supervisors and members to those files where you can download those images as GIFs, EPS, JPEGs, whatever, to use in all of your marketing with the exact rules. And we'll go over branding also a little bit later.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love hearing about people interested in social media, because that is really something that skilled volunteers can bring to libraries. Some libraries have great social media presences and some don't. So, and there may be different reasons for that. So again, take a moment, keep thinking of questions and fire them away.
Yeah, and that may be something that if that's a forte of yours, then, offer that up to your program, because they might not even have thought to ask that and to be thinking of that. So if you say, I am a whiz at that, then that may open more doors.
I know we had a conversation with Shay about the possibilities of what is your library not doing that might be a really fun thing to do, and getting out there, being a media presence, doing a podcast, doing Instagram stories, doing TikTok. As long as you have the approval of the library to do it, right? So as AmeriCorps members, you're not individual actors or agents. You are working within the constraints of an agency, and you are working on the mission of the agency. So just as you wouldn't publish anything without going to an editor or without reviewers or without being part of a team, look at social media as the same way. I know a lot of times we're our own creator of our own social media, but in this case, you're representing an institution. So you always want to keep that in mind. Other questions? What else you got?
The next segment, we'll get into some key information, the real nitty gritty. We didn't want to overwhelm you with too much of that. So Wednesday we'll also have that, but it may be that you will have more questions after you see some of the key information. So why don't we go ahead? I'll share my screen again, and please do put your questions in the chat box, or you can certainly save them for farther along. And so, yes, we wanted to be sure that at the outset that you had this key information about the AmeriCorps program. So we wanted to share a slide about what is the role of your member supervisor or your site supervisor. And those are two different terms. In smaller libraries that don't have as much staff, you may just have a site supervisor. So you may just have one person who is acting as your supervisor. In a larger library system, you may have both a member supervisor and a site supervisor. So you may have at least two people who are there to supervise and provide support for you. So when we use those terms, it's either for member or site supervisor. So, we ask that your supervisors provide a safe, friendly, helpful work environment. We want you to feel like you're a part of the team. We want you to feel like you're very welcome. It is very important to all of us that you have a wonderful experience as an AmeriCorps member, that you feel like you're a valued member of the team, that you're being asked to do meaningful work that you find enjoyable and that you find rewarding. And so your supervisors and the other library literacy staff are key to making sure that that is the experience that you have. They will be giving you comprehensive orientations to the program, to the library, and to the community. That is one of the roles that they have in orienting you. We have our own role to onboard you, and they have also roles and responsibilities. You will be part of the library's team. You're in a unique role as an AmeriCorps member because you're serving. You're not staff, you're not a volunteer, but you are on the library team. And so we hope that you will be involved in library activities and that everybody at the library will know who you are and why you're there and what you're doing, and that they will make you feel welcome. I spoke before about making sure that you're engaged in meaningful activities that not only build capacity for the program, but that help you build capacity and become a more well-rounded and enriched person. So this is a mutually beneficial relationship. We want the libraries to build capacity to be able to do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do without you and the wonderful assets that you bring and contributions that you will make during this year. But we also want you to have growth experiences as well. And your supervisors will mentor you. They won't just supervise you, they will mentor you. They have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge about the library, about adult literacy, and they will be guiding you through this. And hopefully we have some new supervisors, certainly. And so you'll be learning together in that case. But we hope that they will also provide opportunities for you to network, to invite you to some meetings that they go to invite you if they're going to visit other programs in the community. Most library literacy programs are pretty well plugged in to their communities and are parts of coalitions and networks. And so we hope that you'll be able to experience that networking as well.
Kathy, can we just take a break? Because we got 2 questions that came into chat. It's going to be great to address them.
Please, thank you. Thank you for
One was a great question, and Obaidullah, thank you for putting this in there. Is your education award transferable to your son or daughter? And the answer is yes, it's transferable to family members. And in certain cases, even grandchildren, you have to hit a certain age threshold. We'll get you more information about that later in the year, but the education award is certainly transferable. And for those of you who may not have children in your lives, know that you don't have to use it to go back to college like Gail did, or to go to college in the first place like Crystal did. You can use it for other educational opportunities. And so I've had AmeriCorps members who've used it for education abroad programs, even though they weren't enrolled in college, to participate in things like Rhodes Scholar programs, to take an enrichment course at a community college. All kinds of purposes that you can use that education award for, or you can transfer it to a family member, to a child. Kelsey also asks a great question, which is, are we recruiting for tutors who would join AmeriCorps for this year? Or are we just looking for additional tutors not connected to AmeriCorps? So your responsibility is to help your library literacy program run and grow. So you'll be recruiting volunteers to work in your library literacy program. It's not the responsibility of AmeriCorps members to be the recruiters for AmeriCorps members. But heck, if you know someone who's interested in being an AmeriCorps member and your program still has space for a member, so most libraries were assigned 2 slots. But if you know that there's still a slot being recruited for, talk to your site supervisor and say, hey, like, I think I met someone who might be a good candidate. You want to reach out to this person. So your primary responsibility is recruiting program volunteers, not AmeriCorps members. Would you agree with that, Kathy?
Yes, I'm very sorry if I didn't make that clear. So thank you. Thank you for asking that clarifying question. Much appreciated. Okay. So your supervisor will also be checking in with you and making sure, discussing your performance, discussing your progress, making sure that everything's going smoothly, asking you, how are things going? You know, what else could we be doing to support you? And if you feel like you are not making the progress or being able to do as much as you'd hope to do, that is a time when you can talk with your supervisor about that. So open communication is really, really important. Your supervisors are here to guide you and support you. And so, you know, that will be done informally on a regular basis, continuous basis, but there will also be more formal meetings and check-ins. And that includes evaluations at 6 months into your service and at the end of your service. And AmeriCorps will provide forms that you and your supervisor will use during those evaluation sessions. Also, life is full of conflict. Life is full of miscommunication and misunderstandings. And so it is not unreasonable to think that things might come up for you in your service year. There might be things that don't go as smoothly as you would hope. Don't suffer in silence, please. You want to go to your supervisor. You want to ask them to help you resolve any conflicts that you might have, anything that is making you unhappy, anything that you feel that is not going the way that you want it to go. So we want anything like that to be out in the open and to be addressed very quickly and effectively and efficiently so that things don't fester. Okay. We also, AmeriCorps provides some standards of conduct and some consequences that will happen if those standards are breached. And so I hope that your supervisors have had an opportunity to discuss that with you. That was in your member service agreement. We'll do more on that on Wednesday, but there certainly are some processes that are put into place to resolve conflicts and any grievances, and we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. And then if anybody has any needs, any special needs that are covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act, then your library site and your supervisors need to provide reasonable accommodations for you so that you're able to do your service to the best of your abilities. And so we do have more information about that, more detailed information. If anybody needs that information, please let us know and we can get that to you. Any questions at this point? No. Okay, we have, what is the age requirement to be a tutor? So Bev probably is in a best position to answer that. I don't know if there's a statewide or a program.
Yeah, that's local discretion. So when I ran a program, I always said you had to be 18 because I didn't want people to be in the embarrassing situation of perhaps being tutored by someone their kids knew or went to school with. But you know what? I was proved wrong. I had one very persistent young woman, and finally the day she turned 18, she was like, "Can I please?" She went through the training. She was such a great tutor. She respected confidentiality. She was so enthusiastic. Her students loved her. So it does depend on your program. And so I would ask your site supervisor what the guidelines are. And sometimes it has to do with volunteer rules and regulations for your particular city or county or other government, because it may be that they don't want to have a minor being alone working one-on-one with an adult. So whatever your local regulations are, you have to respect that, Kelsey. It's a great question, but just bring it right back to your site supervisor and ask what the rules are and why the rules are that way.
And I think in my program, I think it was 16, because, you know, we realized that there are some very mature high school kids and adolescents. And as
Yes,
we
there
saw,
are.
Crystal was in high school, right, when she started her AmeriCorps service. So, you know, as again, it's just whatever your library protocol is. Okay. So how will we all be communicating? So lots of different ways. There are some wonderful opportunities for communicating in the AmeriCorps portal. And so Lisa will be covering this, and but there are ways that and Lisa, chime in if I'm not, I think you can communicate with us directly as an AmeriCorps project team, a Literacy Works team. If there's anything that you feel uncomfortable about sharing with your supervisor or with other members, you are absolutely welcome to communicate with us confidentially and privately through that portal. I believe, Lisa, can they communicate with each other? Members communicate with each other through that portal?
Yes, they can.
Okay, great. And you'll be talking more about this on Wednesday, right? Great. We'll also be using email. Lisa, there's an option for members to choose text as well. I know for supervisors can choose whether they want to be communicated with via text. Do members have that option as well?
Yes, you can opt into texting and then you enter your phone number and then you're able to get messages and reminders through your phone.
Okay, so this is up to your, you know, your own personal preference. Certainly, there's also phone calls. So we'll be using all of these different communication methods to stay in touch with you, and you to stay in touch with each other as well. There will also be regular touch points or more formal opportunities for us to communicate with each other. And so those will be the monthly webinars, and we will have required trainings and then optional trainings, but we will also have required monthly meetings. We want to check in with you. We want to make sure that we're answering questions. We want to make sure that you are very clear and that you have the information and the support that you want. So we haven't scheduled those yet because we want to see what works best for all of you, but know that there will be more formal monthly meetings. And then you will just always have support from us. So if you ever need anything, Lisa will be handling America Learns, and Paul will be handling the living allowance. I will mostly be handling anything with training, or if there are any questions about your site or about programming. If you have any questions about the CLLS, then I'm sure that Bev and Allison would be very, very happy to answer your questions. So just know that we're always available to you. We want to be there for you, and please don't hesitate to ask us if you have any questions. Oh yes, Bev says state library folks would be very happy to help. Okay. And again, Lisa will be going into much greater detail about this on Wednesday when she talks about America Learns, but we just wanted to give you a little preview today. You will be asked, your supervisors will be asked to complete timesheets. You will be asked to complete timesheets. We're asked to complete timesheets. It's just part of the requirements of America Learns. And so America Learns has a whole system. It's very user-friendly. Lisa will train you on it. And again, if there's any problems that you have, Lisa will always be there for support. And so you will submit those twice a month because your living allowance periods are twice a month. So the first period is from the 1st of the month through the 15th. And the second period is from the 16th to whatever the end of the month is. And you will track your service activities by hours. So how many hours did you tutor? How many hours did you spend on recruiting volunteers? How many on outreach activities or family literacy activities? Lisa has set this up with the AmeriCorps folks, and there are categories already created for you. So it's very, very easy and fast for you to do. And we ask that you submit your timesheets and your service activities 1 day following the end of the living allowance period. So you would submit, let's see. So on the 16th, Lisa, would they submit on the 16th and then on the 1st of the month, right? Okay. And then again, your supervisors are there to provide oversight and support for you. They need to be apprised of how you're spending your time. And so they will be approving your service hours before you submit them. And we just added in a little line about how you can make up hours. So most of you will not, this will not affect you. This is really probably only for full-time members who have a period of sickness or, need to not keep your regular schedule for some reason. And so you miss out on a number of hours. And so there are AmeriCorps regulated guidelines for how you can make up those hours. So if you're ever in a position that you've not been able to provide your service for a bit of time, and you're stressing about, oh my gosh, how am I going to make my 1,700 hours now? I've been sick, or I had to go home to support a family member for a little bit. Please let us know and we can help you with that. Okay, do we have another question? Somebody's, let's see. Without the time records, Paul can't. Right, good point. Thank you, Bev. This gives incentive. Without your time records, Paul can't release payment for your living allowance, but AmeriCorps makes it really easy. I personally am so bad at getting invoices in and that sort of thing. But absolutely, you cannot get your living allowance unless you turn that information in. And it's going to be easy peasy, right, Lisa? Okay. So FICA is deducted from your living allowance. You pay half of that, and Literacy Works pays half of that. So that comes out automatically. You don't have to pay that. It will just be gone when you receive your living allowance. The same is true for workers' compensation insurance. So Literacy Works will pay that for you. And your living allowance will be paid directly into your bank with direct deposit. And so this hasn't started yet, right? Lisa and Paul, have you talked to the members or communicated with them about okay, so this is something that will need to happen actually pretty quickly. And Paul can tell you more about that on Wednesday. But Paul will be managing your living allowances. If there are any issues with receiving the living allowance or with your bank or with direct deposit, you will want to communicate directly with Paul. He will be able to help you with that.
We'll have a form that you will fill out with your direct deposit information. And so we can get that set up. And the turnaround is pretty quick because we want you to start getting paid. And so that's by the 15th of this month. So.
And that's in a secure form on the website, right? Will that be in a secure form on the website?
That'll be a form that they'll send to Lisa or I.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Good. So, does somebody have a question? Oh, thank you. FICA is federal withholding, essentially Social Security. Thank you, Bev, for clarifying. Okay, So we've been asked if members are covered by unemployment insurance, and they are not, because you are not employed. You do not qualify because there is no employer-employee relationship. As we've been saying, you are members and you are engaged in service. And so that is not, you're not earning a wage. And so you're not employed. And so you do not, are not able to be covered by unemployment insurance. And California labor law also says that AmeriCorps members are not eligible for unemployment as you're not employees. Okay, so this is both California and the US Department of Labor. So, and let's see, the living allowance direct deposit, again, this is the living allowance will be deposited into your bank account directly twice a month. So if you don't see that, and Paul, what will that look like? Will that come from Sure Payroll?
Yeah, yes, it'll come from Sure Payroll, and you will get a notice. You will be able to have a through your bank and Sure Payroll, you'll be able to have a password, and it'll alert you that you've been paid.
Okay, good. And we have a couple of questions. Does the state identify our living allowance as wages when it comes to public aid? And that is a good question, because I know that there are some other public benefits that you are eligible for. And so Bev, Paul, do you have that information right now?
Well, I know that people in the past, you will get a W-2 at the end of the month, at the end of the year. So people have used that to show their, what they earned. And that has helped them be eligible for other forms of support.
So we'll get clarity on that, because there is guidance from AmeriCorps and California volunteers. So we'll get the absolute guidance on that, and then make sure everybody has that. And we'll talk about that on Wednesday, but we'll also send that out in an email. Is that okay, Dan?
I'm sorry, the member service agreement that everybody signed, that very long document that you signed along with your supervisor, it lists the different types of aid that you can still be eligible for, and that what counts as wages and what doesn't with your AmeriCorps living allowance. So I would recommend people go back and look over their MSA to get answers to those type of specific questions.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for that reminder. So that member service agreement, which we'll talk about on Wednesday, will go into some detail about what it covers, because that is a working document for you. I foresee that you and your supervisors will just keep that to hand, because there is so much important information in that, just like that. I had totally forgotten that information was all in your member service agreement. And so that will always be a very good resource for you to have at hand when questions like this come up. We're also available, but that's a great point, Lisa. Thank you, to always look in there. And then Diane asks, for tax purposes, what form do we use to file for AmeriCorps service?
You have it, that'll be a W-9, and we also have that on our resource page.
Great, thank you. And so you will go to the Literacy Works AmeriCorps website, and we encourage you to go there because lots of great resources will be there. That's your go-to site. If you have any questions about trainings or resources, information, that is where you will go. But your direct deposit form, which you can see on the right of the slide, is available on the website under the resource page. And then you will submit your form to Paul, by email. And that is Paul's address. And then the project goals and performance measures. Again, we talked about these before. So you'll be recruiting, assessing adult literacy learners, recruiting and training volunteer tutors. Some of you will be planning and presenting family literacy workshops. You'll be planning and promoting community engagement and learner leadership activities. Some of you will be doing that, and all of you will be engaging in training and professional development opportunities. Let's see. Okay, Bev, thank you for answering that. All right. And we talked about completing roles and goals tracking for each learner and outreach event. And so Lisa will talk about this more during the AmeriCorps Learns training, but there will be a lot of paperwork. You will want to be sure to track your activities so that we can have a record of what activities you've been involved in and what goals you've reached during your service year. And we do that during a month by month using a monthly progress report in AmeriCorps Learns. And again, supervisors will evaluate you, complete evaluations, and learners will complete assessments. So these are the things that we must report back to California Volunteers and AmeriCorps Learns. This is how we will be measured as successful or unsuccessful. And so getting us this information accurately and in a timely fashion is really, really important, because it really has a bearing on how successful our entire statewide program is, because this is what we have to report on. Okay. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Lisa says, look on page 4 of your member service agreement. Branding requirements. So this is a little tricky because, oh, and Lisa, maybe we can have an update on our lapel pins, but it is required that members must wear service gear with AmeriCorps logos during all service hours. We had a little bit of a sticky thing because we ordered some gear for you and it has been delayed. And so unfortunately, you have started your service, but you don't have any service gear yet with AmeriCorps logos.
I can update on that.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. We have lapel pens for all of our members right now. And last week they were mailed to your site supervisors. So you will have those sometime this week showing up that you can pin to your shirt that you have. And then the next step we're going to have is ordering you a t-shirt that's been branded with the AmeriCorps logo, like on some of the pictures of people you saw working in the program. And if you're a full-time member, you're going to get one t-shirt. I would recommend getting a larger one that you can wear over your shirt if you're going to wear it day after day after day and you want to wear like a button down underneath it or a blouse underneath it, something like that. But if you're only quarter time or half time, maybe you can wash it and just wear it like a regular shirt. And then there will be opportunities for you guys to purchase more t-shirts if you would like, but at your own expense. And I can share all that information with you.
Great. And will you be able to tell them what's the best way for them to get their t-shirt size to you?
Absolutely. So in the next 2 weeks, I'll be reaching out to every member individually and asking for what size shirt they would like, and then let them know if they run small or large, and we can discuss those options, and then we'll be shipping them to you.
Yeah, and Bev pointed out that your library literacy program where you're serving also needs to have the AmeriCorps logo within sight posted so that everybody knows that this is an AmeriCorps site. Okay. You will be required to participate in some national days of service. So this is a way to show solidarity, to have team building with other AmeriCorps members who are involved in other service opportunities throughout the state. And these could be virtual events, these could be local, these could be regional events. And so you are required to be sworn in, and we will swear you all in at the end of the webinar on Wednesday. And then you must also participate in graduation. So these will be virtual. And then AmeriCorps has something called AmeriCorps Week. And in 2023, this will be March 12th through the 18th. And we don't know yet. They haven't released details of what service will be, but when we know, we will share with you. And these are mandatory participation in these events. AmeriCorps and California volunteers also strongly recommend that you participate in other national service days that are listed on this slide. So in most cases, your libraries will be closed on Martin Luther King Day and Cesar Chavez Day. So there might be some other things going on in your community. And we, I think, will be told about other opportunities to join other AmeriCorps members in your region so that you can meet other team members, other AmeriCorps members, and do some form of service to honor these individuals and days. So we will tell you more about that as these days approach. And again, you can either participate locally or regionally. So this is your choice and your supervisor's choice. You would need to have a conversation about that. Okay. So I see that there is some activity in the chat box. Okay. Oh, thank you. Yep. Fairs, special events, volunteer recognition. You could plan your own event or you can join somebody else's event. So we have about 7 minutes left. When will we receive an AmeriCorps logo image that we can use for branding? Lisa.
I can answer that. I'm sending out an email to all of the supervisors this week with the links to the files where the logos will be located. And then you can just go online and download them. And then with the rules attached also.
What other questions do you have? We've thrown a lot of information at you today.
Yeah. But it does appear people were listening because we're getting these great questions. And some of which we'll turn over to even more experts than we are. We're just a little bit newer at this process than you are. But we know that AmeriCorps is a complex federal program. We try to make the reporting requirements useful for your programs, the data that is valuable to collect and friendly to you. So that's really our goal.
And Bev has a good point, and we are not ashamed to admit that we're new to this too. This is our first year, and we're still getting to know AmeriCorps. America has changed since it was alive and well in California in the earlier days. And so we're still learning. And so if you have questions that we don't have answers to, we will say, we don't know, but we'll get that information for you from our AmeriCorps California Volunteer Program Officer. And sometimes she doesn't know. And so she has to ask people too. So as Bev said, really complex program. And so there's a lot to learn. And so please bear with us, if we don't have all the answers immediately. We will absolutely get them for you.
Just wanted to let you know, Lisa's talked a little bit about America Learns. It's an online reporting system that actually sends you reminders by text or email, whatever you prefer. And it's so much easier. Believe me, I was here in the old days. It was a lot of paper. It was a lot of signing things in blue ink. There's a lot of faxing. If you remember that technology, this is going to be so much better. So yes, there will be a learning curve, but we're here to support you. So Anna, thank you so much. Yes, we find America Learns is on the user-friendly side, and of all, we have been told, of course, by America Learns that of all of the software reporting options or online reporting options, that they are the Lamborghini of AmeriCorps reporting. So just
and they're very supportive. Their staff is incredibly supportive. They worked with Lisa and Paul to customize the reports just for us. And on Wednesday, Lisa will take you step by step by step. She's done a great job of creating slides that will help you walk through every single step of it.
So, and we should know the person, one of the people we were working with was an AmeriCorps member in a library literacy program in Chula Vista. She then went to work for the library, and then she had Kathy's job in the original AmeriCorps initiative, 15 years ago. And she knows in and out. She became a library literacy coordinator. And so that is so helpful. She's been on it both sides as an AmeriCorps member, as AmeriCorps administrator, as a library site person, and now working for America Learns. So we really probably couldn't ask for a better helper than that.
No, yep, her name is Susan, and she will be at Wednesday's training to answer all the kind of things that I cannot answer about AmeriCorps. But all of you members have now received an invitation to sign up for America Learns. It's been emailed to you, and set up your password and set up your profile, put your address in, opt in and out of texts. And I've also sent you in your original training document that you got, which was kind of like today's presentation. It was a PowerPoint in the PDF format that hopefully your supervisor shared with you when you first started, which had directions for timesheets. So hopefully you got that information, but we're going to go over it all again on Wednesday.
So I know everybody's eager to go to their snacks. Does anybody have any questions? And you can always, you have our email, or at least you have Lisa's email. And so if something strikes you later tonight or tomorrow, you're absolutely welcome to email us, or we can answer it on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, we will talk about America Learns in great detail, and Bev will also take us through unallowable and prohibited activities so that you know what you can do and what you can't do. And then Bev and I will go in great detail over the member service agreement. And then Paul will introduce you to the website. Okay. We thank you all for coming. We know 3 hours is a very long time, especially on your second day of service. And we thank the supervisors that were able to join us too. This is great. We know that you're busy, busy people, and we appreciate that you're supporting your members already with this. We have talked a lot. I know things will be better. It's just, it's information dumping this first week. So.
Exactly. And it's great to get to meet you guys virtually, and we will continue this conversation on Wednesday, and reach out to us at any time via email or a phone call if you have questions that you need answered.
And since it's so much information, this will be up on the website, the video of this Zoom. And also there's going to be a member manual that will get out to you that has a lot of the same information.
And it's new. AmeriCorps California Volunteers just designed it. So we're very, very excited to share that with you. So we'll be making that available to you after Wednesday's training. Well, everybody have a very good evening. If it's raining where you are, enjoy the much needed rain. And we will see you on Wednesday afternoon at 2.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
everybody.
Bye.
All right. If anybody is still on, if you have questions and you want to ask, feel free.
Or if you walked away from your computer for a little while.
Yeah, let's stop the recording. So if anybody has a question, maybe.
I do, isn't it